to tell them.
Salute the flag, I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's what the gathering is for.
No, that's
Oh, come on, you're sitting here dead now.
not asking a question.
No, I didn't.
I wait for the recorder. Why does it sound like I can hear the speech?
Yeah, it sounds like you're on. Well, the speakers are on.
Oh, you didn't push the button? Mr. Bach, do you want to sit up here at all? or you just want to sit-
She didn't say anything. This one folded. I don't even know.
Okay.
I'll pull all three of my chairs over.
You good? All right, meeting's been called to order. Roll
I
call.
got two too.
We'll do our official stuff.
You know what, seriously.
Well, at least those are attached, so yeah.
My folders on the other room.
I saw it.
I'm gonna have to go back and get my folders.
Yeah. We're with Steve to talk about the sewer problem. What about the sewer, the grease trap?
My folders in the other room, so I should have that back in.
Just do roll call.
I'll do roll, yes, that's what I mean, I have it.
All right, we're gonna do roll call.
Mayor Calvegas? Here. Mr. Capano?
Here.
Mrs. Fascio? Here. Mrs. Moore? Here. Mr. Farrell?
Here.
Mrs. Kelly? Here. Mr. Root?
Here.
Mr. Wood?
Here.
Mr. Bayshore? And Mr. Bach?
Both here.
And Mr. Wright is here somewhere.
And he'll be in. Okay. Statement, public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been given by the clerk in the following manner. One, posted on the bulletin board in the Borough Clerk's office on January 6, 2014. Two, emailed to the retrospect and courier post on January 6, 2014. The following resolution was tabled at the last meeting. Oh, we should do this. Let's just bang this out.
Do you want to
Okay.
do the transfer of the liquor license?
Yeah, we might as well get that out of the way.
Right here, guys.
Oh, is this the, are they here?
They said they were going to come.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mr. Rippett? Which one?
This is, I'm Michael.
Oh, these are
You're
the new
Michael,
owners of
you're
Pizza Cafe.
Dino, and you can introduce yourself. This is Mayor and Council. This is to Mr. Rippett.
Hi,
And-
Okay.
How are you?
Hi, how
I'm
are
Michael.
you?
Joe Garagoza.
Okay. This will be easy. We're just gonna.
Dino.
Okay, so we have a resolution that was tabled last month. It's a resolution authorizing a person-to-person transfer of a plenary retail consumption license. And it's in your packet. First one. Okay, it's basically just the transfer. Everyone knows it's the, to the Chestnut Group, is that what we're,
Yes.
doing business as Kid Rex?
Yes.
And then all the paperwork's in order. Is there a motion?
I make a motion. I second.
Is there,
That is resolution 14-134, please.
yeah, we have resolution 14-134 since the clerk's not here. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we don't have someone to do roll call, I'll do roll call. Oh, you'll do roll call?
Yeah. Ms. Nasio? Mr. Farrell? Here. Yes. Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Tasio?
Yes.
Mr. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Cabana?
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
Okay, the resolution is adopted, you're good to go. The clerk,
Tell us about it.
Sure.
Tell us about it.
You
Tell
can give
us
us
what
a-
you're going to do. Give us the pitch.
It's too late, you can walk out now.
That's it. It's all done. We just want to know.
It's going to be a local family type of establishment. We're going to have food and beverages. We have a local restaurateur that's going to come in and run the kitchen for us. We're going to have really good food. We're going to have good bar food, but then we're also going to have some nice dinners.
Nice.
Okay. Our staff, we're going to try to have a staff that's well educated on the food and beverages we're serving. Everyone's going to be uniformed. So we're going to try to
Take it to the
pick it
next
up.
level.
Yeah, pick it up a level, right?
That's awesome.
Entertainment. And what's the name of this business? I mean,
Well,
what's the sign gonna say?
That's great. I thought, that Mike talked about that.
I'm gonna explain that to you briefly if I can. This is what the sign's gonna look like.
Oh,
Oh,
nice. It rips. How about that?
The name
Small
Mike
size.
Kid Rips is, basically, we were thinking about doing a project and, restaurant bar, and my, father had passed away about 18 months ago. And, growing up, he had a tattoo on his arm, and he used to box in the Army, and he was from Camden, so he used to box as a youngster in Camden. So, we were kind of gonna go with a sport team in the beginning, but we changed it up, but we decided, as an honor to him, he had a tattoo of a boxer, and his nickname was Kid Rip. So we're gonna kind of honor him and do it, in memory of him, use that name, and,
We're gonna use his logo.
the logo
That's what ours will
is
be.
kind
That's
of,
awesome.
That's a little boxer, that's a little guy.
the logo is a lot better than it was. He got the tattoo in Korea. and
Oh my
it's
gosh,
really
it's really bad.
So it's looking a lot better there than it actually was.
Great.
It's a good idea, just the sign looks like crap.
Let's get that name, yeah.
And, God, you go first.
Well, I have a financial background. I own a CPA firm and a little wealth management company. So I'm handling more or less the bulk end of things.
I was in Las Vegas for 16 years. I worked in food and beverage industry, butler services, restaurants, and
Great. You come with a lot of knowledge.
And I'm a registered nurse in Lawrence Hospital, so I bring not so much of a healthcare background.
You might need somebody. Yeah. Good, I'm glad.
So we're hoping though, we kind of have varied backgrounds, and we're hoping to bring a nice professional type of clientele as well,
Good.
as a local clientele.
That's awesome, I'm excited.
How long are you looking at before you're up and going?
Probably 5-6 weeks, but, we're finished with the improvements.
We're gonna do a lot of facelifting. We're gonna basically put a new roof on, clean everything up, new signage.
Awesome.
We're gonna, replace the bathroom.
What about the apartment upstairs?
Yeah,
What
that's gonna
about
stay.
Right now, that's going to stay as is.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah, that's,
Do you have room for like parties of large people, or what's your facility?
We're-
Can you handle like 50, 60, 80 people at once?
we can, but, there's no separate room for
Oh,
that.
okay.
The
So we
capacity-
have to take over the restaurant.
It isn't, yeah, I've been in the bar, there's not, I've been in the bar,
Right, but we are,
We're expanding.
what we're doing right now is we're doing away with the platform.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're trying to open it up a little bit, make
Right.
it a little more compatible, more accessible.
More comfortable.
Yeah, the pool
Or it's
table's
gonna
gonna
stay.
go, and
Pool
we're gonna-
table's going.
Bar stays where it is?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a big fixture.
It's a great bar, it's got
It
great
is, it's a
bones.
great bar.
Do you guys a favor, make sure Chief Daly is not around when you rip the bathrooms down. I ain't gonna tell you what could be in that bathroom.
Yeah, they're a little frightening now.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to do, is totally make it opposite of what it is. We wanted a family-friendly, anybody can come in, women come in, feel
That's
safe.
That's what
It
you
should be
used
bright.
3 years
We're
ago.
gonna have cameras outside, we're gonna have cameras inside.
Good, I'm excited. The upscale food sounds great. I mean, that sounds really good.
We wanna take a real good approach to it, because obviously, need a little work over there.
And it's a great location.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's a start of a new Runnemede, that's what I'm excited.
We
Good.
intend on working with, the Rotary and,
Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce and Lions
Yeah.
Club, and getting involved
Yeah.
in the township, and successful as we hope
Any
to
of
be.
you live in Runnemede?
No.
We're all from Belmar.
Belmar.
Originally. I'm in Audubon now.
Audubon.
We're all from Belmar originally.
We actually, Michael still lives in Belmar, and I live in Cherry Hill.
Okay, well, that's
Bring
great.
it up to this world.
Well, the clerk, do you sign it tomorrow, Joyce? Is that your job to sign it, or is it the mayor's job to sign
So you like it?
Oh, yeah.
they need that tomorrow, you have to send it up to the state, or what happens?
Nice job.
We're excited, we're excited. We'll
We're
nervous,
excited for you.
Thank you.
We're excited.
You're good to go.
Thank you. Good luck now.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Moore made the motion,
I did.
and second by
And
Ms.
Rose and Eleanor
I
seconded.
seconded.
Okay. There's your notes.
Everybody said yes.
All right, easy. Okay, since Since we have Mr. Bach and Mr. Bayshore here, I'm going to turn it over to them and let them do their fun stuff quickly. You just want to go over, well, can you answer the one question, why does it seem so bad? The one question is the, I'll turn to you. You want to talk a little bit about that sewer ordinance, just briefly? Because, you know, the grease trap, we did a first reading. Ms. Pinto cleaned it up and took all the reference out, but Runnemede did. But there's some concern that the 20 pages, is it all relevant to Runnemede? Should we just?
It's all relevant to Runnemede.
Really, because I got started and I kind of lost my way halfway. I wasn't even halfway through, I'm like, I just can't.
Grease traps, there's 100 different models you can get in any one day of grease traps. There's an appropriate sizing for grease traps based on what the establishment is. If it's a larger restaurant, they should have a larger outside in-ground grease trap of an appropriate size based on DEP recommendations. And all that stuff is in there. Most of that 20-some pages also has to do with responsibility of the property owner who has a grease trap on how they need to maintain it. Because it's not out there. When someone sells you a grease trap, it says, this is what you need to do to make sure it functions the way it's supposed to and not discharging the grease, overflowing the baffles and putting grease into it.
Right, and it gives us the ability to go in and make sure that they're being
Yes.
maintained. At least that was kind of.
Yes, so they're saying it has to be maintained also the requirement of once annually that an outside contractor, someone actually empties grease traps, has to provide an inspection report, and the inspection report by this outside registered contractor has to be provided to the borough. So that takes a lot of burden off the sewer utility, trying to run around and try to self-police. Well, police something that should be self-policed by the establishments. So as long as someone's operating their existing grease trap appropriately, this is really not going to affect them.
Okay, so not to be, here's my confusion. If we say, okay, fine, and this does apply, and it seems like it's accurate, every business is going to be notified, anyone that has a grease trap is going to be notified that we
Well, we would,
pass this ordinance, that we would.
Yeah, one of the problems when
change this.
we don't adopt ordinances, we don't send a letter out to everybody in
That's
town.
why I want to know.
In this particular case, we could, the sewer, the men who run the sewer utility should be able to maybe generate.
It's really not many grease traps.
No,
not that many,
it's
maybe,
not. I'm just saying, is there a
maybe a
way to
dozen.
like communicate with them, much like what we did with the clothing boxes? Are all those people that have clothing boxes being notified that we now have an ordinance that says you
Well, in
can't?
that particular case, we would tell the code enforcement commissioner, he's gonna go out and start
So that's why I was
enforcing
just
that law.
wondering, like-
But we can send a letter out, you're right, there's money, probably not even.
Yeah, I think it's just more of a handout. We'll work with the sewer utility and just have like almost what they call a door hanger handout. So they can just have in the truck go around to the businesses and, on their rounds, that sewer, just
And then any new construction will be subject to this.
I mean, is it all restaurants, or is it
Restaurants.
size? Is there,
we don't have any food manufacturing in town or anything, so we fill restaurants. But say
any
someone.
and all restaurants?
Correct.
Doesn't
Say
matter
someone
whether
came in
it's
with
a
something
tiny,
that
small
doesn't sell.
establishment?
Dunkin' Donuts, the Dunkin' Donuts apply?
Yeah,
Yes.
they have grease traps.
And they have grease traps, they have small ones, unfortunately, they have the small ones under the counters, and they always are not maintained. So this ordinance also gives you the ability that if someone is not maintaining, you have the ability to say, hey, you're not maintaining, go do something. And if they continually not maintain, then you can actually force their hand to put in an appropriate size one. Grease traps, any size grease trap will work as long as you clean it out as necessary. It's the ones that are too small and they only clean them out twice a year, they should be cleaned out 4 times a year. So this is just something that's going to help the sewer utility and get the grease, and here's the big thing, get the grease out of our sewer lines and out of our pump stations, which is undue wear and tear on our equipment, and also a lot of labor for the men who have to clean all that stuff out.
Okay, Joyce, do we have enough time to advertise this?
I don't know, my questions were really different than that. The ordinance that you gave us was Deptford.
Yes,
Deptford,
we wrote it for
okay.
Deptford anyway.
And Deptford has the township, and they also have a DTNUA.
Oh, who's gonna enforce it?
We do not
No,
have
it should
that.
all, any reference to the NUA should all just be by the township. I will work with you on.
So now I have to take, what I did was I substituted Runnemede sewer utility, but that's really,
No.
doesn't operate as an
We'd have to strike
autonomous
that.
body, so
Right, we'd have to strike
that should be eliminated
Can we say
altogether.
borough's
If
appropriate?
you email over what you have so far,
I did.
No, I think
I
she's
mean,
trying to give us
the
a broad
updated
range,
grant?
we can send
Correct.
anybody out there.
All right,
We can
Take a
send
look
two-
and see what,
do it again.
Yeah.
And then I'll look at it.
okay, see what you
Or the
think,
borough.
should be eliminated, because I don't know if it's accurate.
Well, I think it's real important if we could advertise it for this.
Well, I can put it in the courier and it will charge us $800.
Well,
It will cost me more than that to have a pump station pumped out.
there you go, touche. You know, well, there's just not enough time for the retrospect?
Yeah, well,
So
no, we advertise.
We have an extra week this month. We have-
Yeah, correct, but it wouldn't go in until, well, if, I can try, I doubt it, it's so long.
Did you really try to?
It's so long though.
Her enforcement is, I think, the big issue. If we can do that, we can advertise, and then tomorrow, then we put in the retrospective, that saves about half the cost. It's still going to cost $400 for a retrospect, right? Because it's 20 pages long.
Well, I have a question for this one.
Yeah, put it on.
Have that, put the full text.
Everything we do has to be.
Yeah, I know, that's, well,
Okay.
I actually can do a synopsis, but I wouldn't know what was pertinent. I can do a synopsis for the first.
Solicitor says we have to put full text.
No, they changed the law, that you can do a synopsis. The problem is, how, what would I'm not familiar enough. Can you do a synopsis as to what?
Yeah.
If you can do a synopsis, then that
Yeah, so-
would be.
Then we can throw it in the very post.
Yeah.
Correct, that's what I'm
Okay,
getting.
so some down to a paragraph or two that describes you
Besides the enforcement of grease traps in the borough, I'll work on that.
for a full copy, come and get it. Do you want to just continue, just since we jumped on to you very quickly on the, no, whatever you want to take, on the, whatever you like, the emergency repair, do you want to
Let's
just
start with
elaborate on that?
So, we have an emergency repair that happened on, I'm like saying, the Schisler Circle, which is right off the South Reed. The sewer line was a 10-inch sewer line, terracotta, approximately 1955-ish era, 10 foot down in the ground. This is not uncommon from what we've seen in the borough before. What is uncommon here is all the wood shoring, 4x4s, 2x12 planking, plus a raft of shoring from both sides. It was originally installed 10-inch terracotta, like 10 feet down. They built shoring to hold back the walls. They left it all in place, which was for the full way down. And also afterwards, in order then to build a road, they put a nice raft on top of it, also made out of thick wood. So this is what we are confronted with many times, not just this type of shoring, but the type of backfill materials where they just use the original clay, high groundwater positions. So every time we have to dig up even 5-10 feet of pipe, we're experiencing at least a day's worth of emergency repair. A day's worth of emergency repair, even at the pre-negotiated rates that we have with those three qualified contractors, we're still going to be in $25,000. And this is what we've been experiencing year after year. We've talked in the past about how do we prevent these $25,000 one-day repairs happening every year, which we're not going to say happening in the last 12 years that I've been now. Let me just go over this emergency repair. So, no.
We're talking about this, right?
Yeah, you please take a look at what we've had.
Actually, we're at 1,000 words.
So there's two things we have to look at with emergency repairs. One, we have to make sure that the system is operating, that, the residents have their buildings and the homeowners. The other thing is if this 10-inch main runs full pretty much all the time. So if we could not get this under control. Obviously, we have a sanitary sewer release that we had, we're on the local news, and we're getting potentially fined by DEP, which is $10, $20, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, and this is also, we just had another incident where we had another section of pipe not that far away from a pump station need also break. So this is occurring not just once every 5 years, but we're having a couple incidents per year. This emergency repair, because it required bypass pumping, required vacuum trucking, and we still have the restoration of the road where pretty much we were curb-to-curb excavation. We're about 150 feet, 10 feet deep. Right now, the cost of the emergency repair is $87,000 right now. We still have to do the road restoration, and then,
It's settling now. I mean,
It's
that's
settling
why
right
it's-
now.
It's covered in the way it is.
right. But in order to get down and get this excavated, where we have groundwater coming in, that's already bringing 5 gas pumps in, double trench boxes. It was a 3-day period of time to go through this process, and there was nothing that could be done any less than, other than preventative measures, which were then supplying. And so that's why the second part of the conversation, well, let's talk about the emergency repairs.
Wasn't there an issue with the way the piping came in too? Like the way, does that matter?
Well, does everybody know what terracotta sanitary sewer pipe is? It comes in 2-foot lengths. It really is the same sort of material that your clay flower pots are made out that you have on your patios at home. The great thing about terracotta back in the day, they didn't require heavy machinery to install. A guy can hand it down to the other guy and they put them in. Because they came in 2-foot sections. The bad thing is that they use these 2-foot sections to their advantage when they curve the pipe. I've seen road where instead of straight manhole to manhole, it actually passes around other stuff they found in the ground because they want to dig for it. So you know it starts at this manhole, it stops at this manhole. You don't know in between where you're going to find it in the road. So no one can afford to have someone hand dig a pipe anymore. Just going down with careful digging, with a backhoe, especially if you have shoring and everything else, with tree roots and everything else, the chances are that you're going to find the pipe, but also the repair itself is going to damage the pipe you've broken that's already damaged. So then you're just chasing the crack down the trench. So that's where we're doing with terracotta pipe. The best way to prevent this is to go by.
Well, how do we repair it? What do we replace the terracotta with?
With PVC. So we had
So we have all PVC.
We had to get a section from where it was good terracotta, put the coupling in, go all the way to where we could find it good again. And sometimes you're chasing that break, and then we replace it and couple it up again. But by the way,
Pull all the wood out?
we pulled as much wood as we dared to pull, and what we needed to pull for the repair.
Well, Pat had told, I mean, he had said to me that, like, usually it's like the line from the person's house is connected into the pipe. This was like coming together from the people on one side of the street to the other side of the street into a T that was going into the line,
Right.
which was completely not the way it should have been. But again, it's.
Sounds
old
logical.
pipe. Everybody should be connected on the road, not coming in and sharing one
And also,
section.
most sanitary laterals come on an angle, and so there's no additional weight on top of the terracotta pipe. This one actually had a terracotta riser, which is a piece of pipe pushing right on the top of the pipe, and then the two connected up about 6 feet high. Most likely that is what pushed and settled over time and popped the pipe. Because you're not supposed to have weight on top of a terracotta pipe like that. It's actually, the force of the roadway over and over again is going to force that down and eventually crack it loose out. So we've done before the wastewater trust. We've done that for pump station C and D. In speaking with our CFO and our experience, the only way you're going to do wastewater repairs nowadays with the local finance board is to go through the wastewater trust. They will not let you do conventional bonding because wastewater trust is half interest rate, half going rate if you recall, right? So that's been my experience. I would defer to legal, CFO, and everybody else in terms of that, but that's been my experience from dealing with wastewater rehabilitation. There is a cycle coming up where a letter of interest would have to be issued by October 10th, and that's like a 2015 cycle. But the only way to prevent this is to put the slip line pipe, and I'm going to take 2 minutes to tell you what slip lining is, if I could. Slip lining is regular PVC pipe that has been uncured. So in other words, they make the PVC pipe, they do not cure it with heat, they keep it frozen, and it's actually folded in place, it comes in refrigerated trucks. They actually go and clean the line, and they counter the line, and then they winch this folded up sock of PVC material, and they winch it in the hole that we already have into the ground, and they fill up the one end with hot water. It expands the PVC sock and cures it at the same time. And then you, in essence, have a pipe inside of the old terracotta. The old terracotta can fall away, break, we don't care, because that's as strong and as durable a 40-year life of a regular PVC if you actually open up the trench and it's very good.
How do you deal with the laterals coming in?
Well, the laterals, because you're doing the pressure, actually will push and will dimple there'll be little holes, well, I'm sorry, there'll be thin holes where the laterals are. Camera comes in, little robot cutting machine actually comes in, sits them out, and then they flush them all out at the end of the day. So, it's right now, Gloucester Township has done a good significant portion of the town, all the older deeper sections. Stafford anyway, we're doing a lot of it right now. It's much less expensive to put a new pipe sleeve in a hole in the ground that we already have than trying to dig from the top, because you're not going through the roadway excavation, you're not doing all that other labor. Some preventive maintenance here will save a long.
What's it cost a mile?
Well, it's 70 feet, $70 a foot, so $5,200.
$70 a foot, oh my God.
We got 27 miles,
$39,000.
$39,000 a mile. Not bad. Not bad.
Steve, can you give the comparison as to what we're looking at right now?
Yeah, you're talking, that's what we're looking at.
It's not bad.
We have 150 square, we have 150.
That's
I was
close.
only up by 100,000.
Right, but we're looking at 125,000 for 70 feet.
300.
Okay, are you hearing what he's saying?
Right now, we're looking at $125,000 for 70 feet. So you need to weigh planning versus emergency. You're going to make tenfold.
I'm just trying to do a little bit of math in my head. because, You know, this is a project that the borough has failed to start at all. So now, if we're gonna start this project, once again, I'm in my mind saying you got 27 miles of pipe.
You would target.
We're going to go deep.
This is where you would target.
Deep.
Deep, older sections of pipe, also dealing with the past going around and saying, these are the areas we know have high ground conditions. We pretty much know where these areas are. Right down the line, the next block, on South Reed, that section is 20-some feet to ground. So imagine trying to repair something 20-some feet in the ground in the same conditions, high groundwork. As soon as you expose the soil, which is clay, marl soil, as soon as you expose it, it liquefies and it just goes into the trench. Because when we had to take away the jet machine, it went from underneath the pipe and just liquefied clay filling up on top of the pipe a foot and a half. I mean, within 15 minutes. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. You know, this the, you know,
They
the
did a great
cycle.
job.
Full of good news.
Well,
They did a great job
we
on
were
that.
very lucky. I was actually making calls to see if I can get an emergency slip line. Emergency slip line is 2 weeks. That's how you get an emergency slip line. That's the fastest you can get it because they have to manufacture the materials and everything else. Very lucky they worked so hard to get that captured and get that pipe in. And I'm happy it was done safely and everything that worked out through it. We were fighting, because so much of the material was running into the trench, we were running the risk of actually exposing the potable water main right on the other side of the curb line. I mean, we were like probably within an hour of having to say, no, time out, shut down, we're just gonna let it go and figure out something else. It was that close.
The rest you want Lisa to tell everybody how it's gonna get paid for, this $100,000, where that money comes from?
That's going to be emergency, we're going to request emergency appropriation. There's 2 emergencies to be about. The first one is the purchasing side of it, which Steve has prepared the paperwork. At the time, you know, we knew this was going to be emergency, we just didn't know what the number was going to be. That covers us from, and since we have quotes from the 3 vendors for emergencies, you know, we anticipated this likelihood earlier in the year that something like this could happen. It's happened in the past. So basically, we declare the emergency, that's the legal side. I guess we work with Len on the proper resolution for that. Then we actually will, basically emergency is a spending appropriation. So once we iron out what the final numbers are going to be, because we still have some costs, including the engineering costs, all the costs associated with it will be charged to that line item. And then we'll, you know, you have options. I mean, I don't think we'll have to sell a bond for that, but you'll be able to raise it over a period of time.
You wouldn't use any of the surplus?
No, you wouldn't use the surplus. You could fund it with the surplus, but I don't think that would be a good use of the surplus to wipe it out for that purpose.
I guess that's it, everybody. So everybody doesn't have to be upset that we have $100,000, which would be able to pay for it without crushing.
I just want to point out, you're saying 100, Rick said 125.
Right.
That's the number I gave Rick. So I just,
I said 125, I think that
He did tell me
was.
that. Yeah.
Well, you said you had to go, so I just wanted to make sure you did.
So,
I do.
is there only if there's on a short time frame with the wastewater trust. And all this is really just a form saying of an intent. is
You
all
need a
we have to do
resolution
right
from
now.
us, is that what you're saying?
And if so, if we can have it on for the next one, which is just saying, and I can get the resolution, but it'd be a resolution of intent to submit an application to the wastewater
And that's
trust.
good enough to do it on
for
the
sewer
seventh,
rehabilitation.
on meetings, what, the seventh?
As long as we can have
All
that.
right, so we'll put that on the seventh?
In the meantime.
This one is 2 weeks cycles?
Yes, we have an extra week.
I didn't realize that.
In the meantime, I'll work along with Rich and with Pat and John and make sure I have everything put together that will be able to push the button. It's all computerized now, just like the Sage for the DOT grants. I'll have it all filled out, ready to go, and then once you do your vote on the 7th.
Does anybody have any, I mean, it's not a terrible thing, it's borrowing money at half the interest rate, it's, I don't think we're very close on paying off the first one we did, though, right, are we done?
I think that, well, I think we have 3. So one of them is paid off, and I think we're still paying on.
Is this an EIT?
Go ahead.
Yes.
So this is what people's sewer bills pay for, is
Basically, it's,
maintenance, hopefully improvements.
the auditors, I put in my report, but the auditors will be back in this week. I'm going to sit down just to go over the numbers and make sure that, I guess the answer is, yes, we can apply. The question is, what number do we apply for? And that's what it comes down to. We have to make sure that we don't impact the rate, but at the same time, we want to make sure that there's enough so that it's worth doing the project, because it's very cumbersome to go through the EIT process, so.
Okay. All right, that's some more good news.
Mark, anything on yours?
Yeah, I can go through my status report. The very first thing was emergency repairs, so we're right done with that. The municipal building side egress door, the landing that we installed was not code compliant, so we did some as-built. We came up with a revised grading plan, so the contractor is going to reinstall the brick pavers around the area to get the floor and stuff that we need, but we'll still have the proper grade, so pull out the landing. And he's supposed to be coming in Saturday to do that work.
Will we get charged up?
Yeah.
We need to do a little coordination with this contractor, so that the alarm doesn't get keep going. So if we could, you know, Bob or me or someone can just let him, police department, somehow we can avoid the alarm.
We don't have the alarm cut off on it.
So that's right, it's a side door alarm. Is the side door not,
It's up front. Front alarm.
Mr. Ray, is it the side door? Does that not
The
work?
side door has its own panel, but there seems to be some miscommunication between the sub panel and the main panel, because even when the alarm is off and inactive, and you open the door, it sets off the main. I think it's an alarm, we can bring the company out.
And also, I don't think you guys open the door.
He doesn't have to open
I
the
don't
door.
think you guys open the
Well,
door.
no, he was doing the carpeting, he was painting the walls, he was doing all that stuff
Oh,
every weekend, so there was, and painting the actual door itself. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, it's very nice.
Okay.
I refuse to answer.
Yes, I responded back.
On page 2 of the report, reconstruction of Washington Avenue, the CDBG project. I just got the contracts back this morning, so I have to bring them to the borough to get those signed by the mayor, but we're ready to go to construction. That's what I'll schedule the construction meeting for early next week, and hopefully first week in October, we can get that project rolling.
Wonderful.
The general engineering, DOT has announced that fiscal year 2015 municipal aid applications are due. They are due October 14th, so we need a resolution from council authorizing Bach Associates to submit an application. This past year, we submitted a discretionary aid application for South Oakland Avenue. We have not heard anything about discretionary aids, so I would recommend that we reapply for South Oakland Avenue this fiscal year 2015.
Good.
We can either do that tonight, or if you want to wait until the next council meeting, we still have time, as long as I have concurrence from council, we can start the application process.
I think the committee wanted to do Oakland from the beginning.
Yeah, yes, I think.
So we'll just do a resolution for the October 7th?
I have one.
Okay, very good. Under the Borough Hall front door replacements, David Walker says the door is close to being here. It's not here.
It's here.
It's here now? Okay.
Told them today it's in his garage.
Garage, okay.
So the alarm
Oh,
definitely,
someone put
You
that.
mentioned this is unnecessary, that's just a.
He'll have it in no more than 2 weeks.
so the alarm is definitely.
Thanks, Bob.
You skipped a couple things. Bowers Avenue, reconstruction? You guys haven't come up with
Hey,
any?
Actually, Council President, before we move on, can I ask a question, Mark, regarding the vendor? Do you have the two change orders for the side door? I did authorize him to submit a progress billing based on the fact that it's just the step that's holding us up.
Right, we are having them resubmit an invoice without any change orders at this point in time.
Okay.
We weren't aware that they were approved,
Okay,
so.
But then but we can have him also submit another invoice for the change order stuff also,
okay,
so we can work with him.
all right.
He's gonna wait until the job's decided, he goes towards done and invoice for the whole thing. He's trying to do a partial with the change order, and he said we couldn't pay him for the change order because officially approved by council.
Right.
So he's gonna wait until he fixes the papers and then resubmit in full at that time.
Okay, I trying to, I think this is the first time he's done a project with this like this, and he called me and I talked to him, I let him know he had to go through you, because you approved it and submitted it to us, I just want to make sure we move forward on that.
We're aware there's some type of changes that we're.
I authorize him, yeah.
Bowers Avenue and White Bank, we have evaluated what we want to do. We just have to do the proposal to let you know how much it's going to cost for us to go through that work. We've got some skeleton survey work done, and we have an idea what we want to do on both of those.
As you know, we've got residents, it's very detrimental to all those people who live on that street. And just to stop for a second, Lynn, any progress on the foreclosure of that land?
Not heard it.
Just keep going, just keep cutting the grass.
On Bowers Avenue, we're looking to reconstruct the road and drain that swale.
Into that swell. That's the swell we're talking about, that we've been.
So that'll be a 2-for-1, you're not putting the drainage pipe in, because drainage pipe, no matter how big you size it for the amount of water that comes off the field, depending on the rain and everything else. If we actually reconstruct the road and do some of the curbside swales and everything else, it's almost like a 60-inch pipe worth of capacity. So, and also we can fix the pavement at the same time. So it's kind of a two-for. That's the idea, which is going to be presented in the proposal, which you'll get before the next
And
meeting.
all the water runs into this
Yep,
area.
and all will run down and run into there. And then over by the bike path, Mark and I looked at that, it really thinks it's a maintenance item that would work with Public Works.
Okay, that's the other green issue. Okay.
But if you want some improvements, that stays within the right of way.
Mark, with Bowers, are you doing when you do if you do the road, are you putting the sidewalks in on the field side or anything?
Okay.
Parking.
Yeah, if you want to spec for one of these deck ends. If you want any.
Well, would we have to consider that when we're
Yeah,
doing the drainage? Do we have to think about if we pave that area for people to park?
We will consider that in the design.
Is that what you're thinking, Mike?
I just, if they,
What
no,
field
that's
do you-
parking there now.
It's parking
It's
out,
just,
stone.
it's just stone.
But
Actually, it's not even
paved
stone,
would be-
it's
Crushed asphalt?
yeah, it's millings.
Buildings.
But,
We'll give you an option A, option B. Existing sort of limits of pavement and how we would reconstruct that, the south drainage. And then also to bank out the existing parking out there, maybe the sidewalk. Not looking to introduce any curb or anything out there, because that's just another point that we're gonna try to get over, and things to settle. So we'll work on that and
We might be looking for a curb on the resident.
on the other side,
The resident side.
which would help bank and keep the water from
Okay.
popping up over there.
There's some curb over there, isn't there? There's not a lot of it.
But where we're having the issue, there's no curb.
Yeah, that's right.
get down past the new houses.
So we'll have our proposal ready for the October 7th meeting, okay, for the scope.
October 7th, meeting, proposal, you said what time? October 7th?
At a regular council meeting,
Oh,
you say we.
you'll have the proposal.
Yeah,
Yep.
we could authorize it.
And then the other thing I have is on the emergency generator. I talked to the contractor today, all the materials in, they're gonna be starting on Monday, the 29th. We currently have key and the code from the police chief, so they're all set to go Monday at 7:30.
You're the street here?
Sure. Guys will be here on Monday to start the generator work.
Mark, if I may interrupt, on that note, when do you expect that they'll need the space so that we can relocate the bus? That's starting Monday? or- Starting Monday?
I would get out of the way.
Okay, no problem.
I thought you did.
No,
going to change the way we operate, then that is something that could be considered. I just, when I first heard the idea, I was not keen on it.
I was just.
So just park it in.
But I wasn't aware that that had come from you when I heard it, so.
I think there was a discussion.
Well, there was a discussion to try to get blacktop down there to have an area that we could put the bus on, that would be away from everything else.
It was a little premature, but it
Well,
was.
no, we were trying to keep it from being like parked in the midst of all the mud that is down there. We were trying to delegate an area that was like, this was going, where it was gonna be, and then kind of got botched, like, no, I don't want to do it. And it was a justified reason, it was a justified reason,
Can you
so.
just repaint some of the spaces out for a corner?
Well, that's just what I think, we're just
We're trying
gonna
to
move
get
it.
it.
We didn't want to take up too many
We're
parking
trying to
spots.
get it out of here. We're trying to get it out of here.
In a positive light, we're trying to not make this be a storage lot out front, and I concur. So
There's
that's,
still too many things, too many things to store.
There's plugs down there. I mean, they're-
That's interesting. This,
Say again?
He said the reason why he wants to bring line of space outside is that has to be plugged in.
What does?
Moss.
oh, it's diesel?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
How does he plug it in now?
Oh, we
We have an outlet on the wall.
who's that? What's that?
we put outlets down by the seniors.
Miss Vasquez thinks that the Harry Williams building by the seniors might be a great spot to park the bus. If there's no outlet now,
Wait, where we're gonna put the dumpster enclosure?
right in front of it.
Yes.
Right there, that would be
I
perfect.
think that's a perfect
I
spot.
think we just have to do it I didn't know we had to plug it in, I didn't realize it was diesel.
If it's diesel, yes, the winter, for winter.
Why don't we just park at the Johnson House? That's more convenient than
Yeah.
anywhere. Let's just leave it there.
Give them the keys.
Are we still leaving the keys in the bus?
No, we're not. Thank you.
I mean, I can get there, I can get there anytime I want.
Token the
I
bear.
noticed the
Token the
poking of the
bear.
bear in the cage most of the night. Yeah, really.
You heard about that New Jersey bear, right?
I can tell you where the bus is within 40 seconds. Don't worry
You
about it.
have electric sign first, why don't we just park?
And I have outlets outside.
And it's gated.
It is
You can lock it
gated.
up, it's safe there.
It's gated.
Put it in
There's
my
security
driveway, I
outside.
have an outlet
There's there.
That's right, because you have.
All right, Mr. Page. Harry,
On the soccer field and irrigation well, our inspector had a meeting with the manager to go over the outstanding punch list items. We're just waiting on their schedule when they're going to come out and take care of the last remaining items. They're still holding their retained for that, and we're not going to release it until they do all the punch list. And the bathroom facility, that the door closures and crash chains were installed. We submitted an application for payment on August 22nd. I just don't know if that was paid or not.
The main bill is paid, the change order is pending.
main bill is paid, the change.
Change orders pending.
Order for
There was a small change order on that, so the main bill was paid, it's the change order that's outstanding.
It's only this 1460?
That's all,
Like another,
178.
the original amount was paid.
Right, the original contract. That's all we paid, the only thing that's not paid is this.
The change order was.
Why does it sound
What's the
more?
balance of the change order? What's the balance of the change
Like
order?
480, you like the 400 change order? There's a small change order, if I recall correctly.
From our office.
I just saw it was there.
You don't remember another change order?
Let me put it this way, what you sent me and what I cut a PO for, I paid.
Okay, so he's only following you. So if you're worried about a road change order, is that what you're thinking?
We should look into that.
I just want to make sure something.
Okay.
So to count.
There was a change order request that we took care of.
In-house.
We had specified the wrong type of clothes. It was too heavy clothes.
Yeah.
So we.
Took care of, meaning we paid for it. So we paid.
So you want to make sure.
So
So you need to make sure this guy, I didn't pay him, and then the borough.
So you're saying that second bill that they sent was
Yeah.
that I didn't pay?
He's looking out for us.
I just didn't say.
He swerves though, it's real obvious though, you see how much he swerves?
Yeah, they're good that way,
He's
they.
moving around and I wasn't sure what was going on. Okay, thank you. We'll just go on to the rest of the agenda here. Discussion of letter regarding use of bus by Barrington. Is there any concern about that?
Did you guys get the letter?
I don't remember seeing it.
I know you sent CC to mayor and council, but they're requesting the use of our bus on October the 11th.
Oh, is this the Harvest Festival?
Yeah, well, we gave them a bus.
We did.
We did.
Why
We
did
sold
they-
them.
We sold them a bus. But they want to use another bus?
They want to use it on
Maybe they want
Saturday,
to-
October the
That's
11th.
fine.
Any idea how big that festival is?
That's fine.
Thousands of people go to that thing. It's amazing.
We've done it every year. We've done it every year. I don't see any problem
We
with
did
that.
it last year with them. It's a phenomenal turnout that goes to
Working
that
bus
festival.
over in Paris.
We're working very aggressively with our partner communities on trading equipment back and forth, so this is consistent with
Mr.
that.
Wright is saying.
No, we absolutely, we did it
We've
last
done
year.
it before.
We did
Let's
it
not
last
do the
year.
bus now, and then that's, we got rid of the bus.
We got rid of the bus for a little while. So
We
the
did it last year. Yeah.
We supply a driver.
Bus, but you need to hold on.
Did we supply it? I think we might have supplied it.
I thought we did too.
Yeah. Why don't you say his name?
That's fine. We can get somebody to do it, and Nicky will do it
I
if
think
he
he
has
did.
to. He probably does. He does it for the seniors. They've got the bus reserved
So we're all agreed that that's the same as what we've always done?
for the third. What's the date? I'm
October
sorry.
3rd.
October 11th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Rain date, Sunday, October the 12th, same time.
Okay, thank you.
Resolution refunding a duplicate tax payment, that's not a big deal. Discussion of purchase of buildings. Mr. Farrell has, do you want to elaborate a little bit on this before we?
Yeah, Bob Del Sordo, and we're meeting Thursday at 11 o'clock to discuss these buildings next door. I don't know if you know, he doesn't know, he only owns 3 of the 4 buildings. The one is owned by a Chinese.
Yeah, but a friend of his, I think.
Yes, you don't think there'd be any problem getting him on board. So I asked Nick if he would meet with me and Bob on Thursday at 11.
Yeah, so we're going to meet, as long as council feels that this is appropriate.
Properties that we saw the assessments on.
Yes, what we did is, this is all very preliminary. Obviously, there's concerns that, we don't want to overpay, obviously, we have to assess cost. This is for council to be on board before we move forward. If this property is not something we are going to be able to maybe even get, or once we have the engineer look at it, we'll move on and look at other property. We're not being locked in. We're being very open and saying that we're looking at these. It's been a problem, the parking's been a problem for a while. Past councils have looked at the old gas station on the Pike, I don't know if everybody remembers that, it was looked at one point. So Mr. Del Sordo, to his credit, has basically reached back out to us saying that he's willing to at least discuss this, and he.
So the building.
So why are we, meeting with Mr. Del Sordo?
Just to
Because,
see what he thinks their value is, and
As opposed to what the assessment.
what we're saying is the assessed value. Just for us, everyone saw that if you look at the numbers, the tax assessor, if you read what he said, it's about $300,000 and things like that. One of the concerns is, will there be a premium wanting to be charged on this? Council's not obligated to do anything. Council's not done anything in the
And why
past.
do you want to purchase these
Well,
buildings?
We'll tear them down, they'll be torn down, and we'll have parking.
Don't go crazy. Just connect it. If you want it. Make it.
Well, no, we don't necessarily want it.
Well, if it's decided if you want it, Bob.
Since the
My
DOT,
Bob
question
gets to be
is,
Bob.
is it going to really be beneficial, those buildings? Is that really going to benefit?
well, I think that.
That's my,
Okay.
I'm on the
Good point.
same wavelength because,
If we go quickly back, the parking, there used to be parking on the Black Horse Pike. Residents used to be able to pull right in front of the Borough Hall, walk in, and pay their bill. Obviously, the DOT rearranged everything, and it's been a problem. And for several councils going back, this has been an ongoing problem. How do we resolve parking? Other municipalities have done something very simple, similar. They buy properties. You can talk about Barrington. They bought 2 different locations. They've done that. They use their borough facility also for parking. You can talk about Collingswood, Haddonfield, all these towns that have purchased some properties. I think councils in the past have looked at other properties along the Pike. One of the problems with them are, once again, like the gas station, were you involved with that at all? When the previous council, if you remember, since when that was looked at, people weren't necessarily willing to sell the properties. And the properties weren't necessarily conducive. Ms. Moore, I think at one point brought up the property across the street from the borough, Thatcher's, and we didn't really move quickly, and that building's been sold.
so you feel that if we had more parking space, it would bring more businesses? to
I think
our
there's
neighborhood?
in my opinion,
I think that's a definite.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. You're
Now, see,
looking
I've
at
lived here all my life, and I don't think that that's the issue. I think we
Parking
should,
before that.
I don't think that we should have to spend all that money to think that we might be able to.
Well, I agree with you.
It's economy, it's
But
the
it's,
economy,
well, it's not just
and
the
it's,
economy.
and it's fixing up what we already have.
You are right, but let me stop for just a second, and I agree with you, because that's a good
If
argument.
you come down, I ask for you to take a walk with me, and let's just look at all the open spaces that are on the.
Absolutely. But here's what you just brought up, a good point. If we arbitrarily buy a piece of land on the Black Horse Pike and turn it into a parking lot, you're right. Are we picking winners and losers who are going to have additional parking? The properties that are adjacent to the Borough Hall serve two other purposes. They serve us as the Borough Hall gaining that access to the front of the building, which we've basically lost. The front door is completely, in my opinion, inaccessible. You know, if someone has to park in the back to walk away to the front, it's ridiculous. The layout of this building is not conducive. There was really almost no way really to easily allow someone to walk in from the police department and walk to the tax office to pay their tax bill. So by buying these adjacent properties, I think the first thing we solve is our problem. And our problem is not having access to the front of this building, handicap accessibility to the front of the building. We do get still a large amount of people to come and pay their taxes through that front door, right? It is getting less.
Okay.
And then the second thing would be,
So you want to put a parking area next to the Borough Hall, which will be how many feet? Approximately, give me an approximation of footage.
probably about 100, maybe 100 feet by 400 feet, is that maybe?
So that'll be, how many, like
100 foot of frontage.
No, so say I park on the very end, and that's a 400-foot walk I have to walk. So
No, no,
is
no.
there any different, I'm talking about.
No, someone will be able to
any
park
different-
right in the front of the building. Picture, there's, that fence gets taken down.
Yeah.
There'll be parking spots, say there's 3 handicap parking spots, and 15-minute parking right there. A person would be able to park right there, get out of their car, and they'll be at the front counter in 15 feet. Where right now, I didn't mark it off, but I don't know if anybody wants to say, it's probably a good 250, 300 feet to walk down. I think it also brings presence back to the Black Horse Pike for us. You know, we're a Black Horse Pike community. Is it over 200 feet front? 300 feet.
According to that.
Don't forget, I did give you the name of a gentleman that called me to see about investing in the town. Remember?
Yes.
Don't forget.
Listen, we suffer it worse. This is only my opinion. We suffer it
We as the
worse.
borough.
We as the borough suffer worse than Haddonfield, or to make comparisons of Collingswood or Haddonfield. We are on a major thoroughfare. Haddon Avenue is not, I mean, it is a busy road, no doubt, but it is not the Black Horse Pike. So it is a different.
And if you want to get anywhere, you have to park, you have to walk,
Well,
whether it be
and
at
that being
Haddonfield,
said, but people are
and their
willing,
businesses
if there's
are
a
private.
reason, there's a reason to walk, and people are willing if there's a reason to walk. Collingswood was not always the town that it is.
But it's the
Collingswood was an
businesses that are there
armpit
now.
of that whole section. It was not a great
Yeah, but the
scenario.
businesses aren't gonna come here with no parking.
They're not gonna come with no parking.
But let me also say how I feel.
Would you
I-
open up
I-
something with no
I don't-
parking, Pat?
There is a lot of
Would
parking.
you open up something with no
There's a
parking?
lot of parking
Would you?
there. Would
Where?
I open up something
didn't
with
have any
no
parking?
parking?
Yeah.
In the town of Runnemede? Yeah, you have your side streets, you have.
Right, but then you pull, if it's a side street, if there's residents, then they can.
Are the
pull
businesses-
Because they're parking on my side
Do
street, they're in
the
front of my
people in
house.
our town know that our borough has public parking?
In the back of the
No.
building.
It's not very conducive even for the Black Horse Pike. Well, let me just say one thing. I agree also with, you know, I can give myself as an example. My building is a non-conforming lot, which means I could never build my building in Gloucester Township right now. There's not enough parking at all. I took the initiative to purchase the lot next door to me to make that difference. If you look at other places, you know, the Philly Diner, they bought that other property to do it. I agree with you that the businesses have some responsibility, but at the same time, we're still charged to, you know, help people want to do this. You know, you're right, that one little parking spot's not gonna fix the whole town. It's not.
Responsibility, I'm saying more or less
They
that.
won't.
Yeah.
That's to save the borough, all of the residents.
I would say it's more for us
Listen, and
than.
the building, the businesses on the up, listen, you've lived here long enough. I mean,
I've lived here long enough.
it was not the perfect scenario, but there was that singing telegram place that used to be next to the
Oh,
Borough Hall,
Banana
like
Lady.
Banana or whatever it was
Banana.
called. that place was there. There was another business before even Plastic Carriage. There were businesses in those little things. Now, other than the dry cleaner, there's nothing in them because there's nowhere to park.
And these current properties we are looking at, they're also vacant. And the reason I believe they're vacant is there is not enough
Well, the
parking.
girl that owned the salon, didn't she move across the street because there's more parking in front of the building?
Yeah.
She said it was too difficult for her to have the salon, so she moved over to the other side down from the post office.
Don't get me wrong, I agree, this is taxpayers' money, we have to look at it very closely. You know, once we see if it is even, you know, the cost of these lots, if they're not outrageous, then we look at our engineer to say to us, is it enough to get enough parking
But I'll
spots to
back you
justify?
on this, if we continue to take away any infrastructure of what we have left of the town,
We're gonna look like empty parking
we're
lots.
shooting ourselves in the foot because then we're just some area that you understand what I'm saying? Like you're taking away storefronts
Mhm.
that
That are real.
that are, well, if there was parking, but the parking is the,
Yeah,
is the.
these storefronts that we're looking at, and I think most of the storefronts that, a lot of storefronts on the Black Horse Pike, they could never build them today. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's no parking, there's no access,
It
there's
it
no
goes
anything.
back to a time when people didn't have free cars, where not everybody, where people walked, where people took the bus. I mean, God, I walked up to the Pike 1,000 times as a kid growing up here. I mean, it was a different scenario. It's different.
So that's why I'm personally not for picking several spots along the Black Horse Pike and just buy lots. Because I agree with you, you know, this way we're at least tying it into the borough. On court date, Judge, correct me, Chief,
Oh.
don't we have parking that overflows onto Lindsay and Knight
It's terrible.
and down First? So I'm not saying we're never gonna get enough parking for a busy court night or something like that, but if we can get 15 or 20 more spots and allow people to come in the front, it may be worth an investment.
The upside of that particular location, in my view, is it's central to what's remaining of the businesses. Even though a lot of them are vacant, it's central, because once you hit 4th, 5th Avenue, then your businesses are scattered independently. This is the cluster that's remaining. This is the little bit of left. I mean, because once you cross over Clemens Bridge and you head down toward Philly Diner, it's like,
Yeah.
you've got random businesses.
And they've
These are the
purchased
ones
and
that
they've
are
expanded
remaining.
themselves.
And these are the ones that
Yeah.
are remaining, they're clustered together, so allowing parking within this cluster.
Yeah,
stinks.
you're right, from Clemens Bridge Road to Evesham Road, that area seems fine.
Right.
Those
Well, they
businesses
don't
have
have
expanded on
parking
their
there,
own.
yeah.
Right,
They don't have
and
their
they're
own parking.
random little spots along the way, as like where Canudo's was, or
Yeah.
the convenience store, and those, they're random places along the way. This is the cluster of what's empty buildings.
And I think at some point, we do have to
Not
look
many
at
there.
redevelopment
I don't
zone.
think it'll do any harm to talk about.
It's only talking, it's only trying to get an idea, you know, the engineer might come back and say that it's completely not even worth looking at it, and it's only a conversation.
That's it. I think there's no
Don't
one.
think that new restaurant isn't counting on that TD Bank's parking lot.
Going right, absolutely.
Overflow.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
They use, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the
They're going to have an agreement with TD Bank, or are they going to get
The
towed?
overflow on the side, but they use
What's
less
that?
cleaners.
Well,
Are you gonna
in my
have an
personal,
agreement with the bank,
once
or
again, I
the
have
person get
experience,
towed?
typically there are agreements made. Places like the Club Diner, they rent spots from the
Yes.
property there. It happens all over the place where you rent spots. Not from TD, but typically business owners would make arrangements in this effect. I don't know if you've
I mean,
experienced
pizza's
that.
not- it's
I
not
mean,
a
they won't put chains across the entrance.
Where pizza is, it's not a huge lot, but the capacity of what pizza can handle is not a huge amount
Well,
either.
You
So
have
I-
meat cheese.
you know what I mean?
Once again,
Yeah.
and the second thing on our agenda is the discussion of the sale of the borough land. If everyone read the email from the assessor, he basically felt that the 20 feet, 25 feet wide by 150 feet deep should be at a minimum bid of $10,000. So the process, Len, tell me if I'm saying it right, is we would have, obviously, if the council wants to, we would put this out for bid with a minimum bid of $10,000. I can't imagine anybody but the homeowner adjacent would put the bid in. Then they would be required to come in front of the planning, the zoning board, to do a variance to change their current home to 60 by 150, which would then create a new lot of 60 by 150. And then-
60 by 150 conforming.
Both, yeah. The minimum lot size in the borough Runnemede is 60 by 100. So
All right, so when he gets the new piece, he can create two 60 by 1.
when he gets the additional 25,
He's going to do a minor subdivision from his existing piece,
yeah.
to add on to the piece.
Oh, is this the one that wants to put?
This is the one where we vacated Lakeview many years ago. Lakeview was vacated on that particular block. That gave him an extra 40 feet. It wasn't quite enough for another property.
Are we doing a sealed bid, or are we doing this as an auction?
Tell me, what's the best way of doing it?
Either way, I mean, we're not really expecting more than one, but
I can't imagine doing one, but
yeah, we could do it as
as an auction. And when we put it out, we'll put all the terms and conditions that are gonna be contained in the contract, right, the bid docs.
I mean, if someone else were to bid on this and take a 25 by 150, they couldn't do anything with it.
Right.
It's a
Right, and
non-conforming.
we're not indicating that the lot is conforming to lot with all those caveats.
Yeah.
I can work with that.
Okay. I mean, does anybody have any, and obviously this $10,000, we've talked about the fact that it could be allocated to something specific, you know, I think Mike said the lake, right? And that would suggest.
We have to maintain that.
Yeah,
It's something we have to really do.
I'm sure they can.
It's been 40 years. I know.
I'm sure the administrator will make sure we can move that over.
Well, I spoke to you earlier
So-
today,
so
so
what-
let's throw this out.
What is the time frame on this?
Well, I think the first step is, if everyone's okay, I will at least reach out, because the residents have reached out to Ms. Moore and myself, I'll at least let them know that this is our plan. Once again, if they say, we don't want to pay anything for it, well, then we'll come back and say that the council has decided through its assessor, which, once again, we've asked our assessor to do his job, and he's not his job.
Right, and she.
So if we were to undermine him and say that he's not worth $10,000, I think we would be in a very bad position.
Big problem.
We're not giving, we're not giving.
No, we're not giving it away.
Yeah, I mean, if the assessor's telling us what it's worth, it's real hard for us not to get that minimum.
That's right.
But like I spoke to you earlier today, I think it's an issue that needs to be addressed with the council overall. There's a lot of these little pieces of property. I said, I just had a conversation with a resident on Hirsch Avenue, and I could have sworn if you had asked me if that piece of property belonged to his house, I would have said yes. And he goes, oh, that's not mine, it's the borough's. He goes, I just cut back the tree of the grass. He goes, I've been doing it forever. And I thought that they belonged to him. And he goes, that's not mine.
Yes.
So there's a lot of these little pieces that I'm wondering if residents would want them.
And we've discussed this
Like,
lately.
much like we
as-
did with Detmar.
What we did at Detmar, and what, even what Lakeview happened in Lakeview, where the town, in the past gave this land, one of the things we talked about first was to get Public Works to tell us what properties they think are the boroughs, because they're out there cutting all these pieces
And
of
we're not talking
property.
about easements by sewer stations,
No,
we're not talking about
no.
that.
So, does the engineer, do you have any suggestions? How would we come about figuring out where all these little dangling parcels? Do we talk to the assessor again?
The map, the zoning map that we did.
It's very-
Has quasi-public, which could be possibly borough-owned or a utility, so it shows up as green on your zoning map. But it's just.
So then we'd have to go and we just have to decipher all those green ones, if they're
Right.
easement versus.
Then you also would have a full listing from the assessor of Borough Runnemede, every variation of what could possibly be Runnemede, sewer utility, sewage authority, everything else, a full listing, and then we sit down with the assessor, go off the
Well,
map.
and that's what we'll do first. We'll get the assessor to come up with his list, and then we'll look at them, because I think that's a concern about all these little problems. And I think Joyce has brought up the fact that we've got a piece of land on Clemens Bridge Road, correct, that hasn't been paid taxes also for 30-some years.
Right, when I took over as tax collector, a piece of property that's owned by someone's name, but the mailing address is our address. Dave Watson had already passed away, no one seems to know.
Where's the property?
It's down towards the point on Clemens Bridge Road on the right-hand
It's
side.
a water sign.
Yeah.
It's 20 feet.
My friend,
I have no idea why it's addressed to us.
Not many years ago. They rented it.
So it's another piece of property that maybe we should vacate,
I think it was
eliminate a
Bassett.
line, and then just.
Was it
have it go
Bassett's
back
house?
to-
Piece of land.
All right,
Was it Bassett's house?
Well, it's a municipal lien, no one's paid the taxes in 30 years.
Who?
No, I just want to make everybody aware that
Is it Bassett?
situation at the point.
Oh, yeah.
Since we're talking land and all this, the situation with the point down at Gerace Jewelers that I had talked to the freeholders about, and this has been going on now since probably late February, early March. We have now hit a wall because I think everybody knew that the state had kind of intervened and said, oh, no, you can't put a wall here. Well, now we understand why, because that little strip of grass that comes down to a point has a line right up the middle, that the part on the right-hand side that's on Clemens Bridge Road belongs to the state, and the part on the left-hand side that goes by Eastham belongs to the county. So what we now have to do, the state graciously said, well, you can put a wall, but you would just be able to put it on your half. Of course, that's going to look great. So the county was very willing to meet with us the other day. They talked, Mr. Wright was there, they talked to us, said that what they're going to do, they had a similar situation that happened in Camden City, that there was something that they wanted to put a decorative wall, and they wanted to do something the county did, and they found out a portion of the land was owned by the state. So they reached out to the state and asked them for the land, and the state goes, okay. The state's comment was, we don't really have sign police, so if you wanted to do it, and the county goes, well, we've already kind of like opened up the barn door at this point, so we're on the radar, so we don't really want to do anything that we're not supposed to do. So we are taking the next step, which is they have some people that they know, they're going to talk to some people to see if they can get the state to just say, they're not going to, they said they can't imagine that the state
To
would
grant the land to the
just to
county?
give it to the county, pretty much. They would have to get a resolution, and then they in turn would have to do that. And just say that now once it's the counties, we can do whatever we want.
We're
When we put
responsible.
up the 2-foot wall, we can do whatever we want. But there is a line right down smack in the middle.
Clemens Bridge Road is owned by the
Those
state,
East
the Sham is owned by the
Yeah.
state. Yeah. Okay, well, that's good news at least.
So,
Just
just
doing
give it all.
anything about the residency ordinance.
That's coming up, it's not on the list, but we've got it. We want to do the Halloween curfew, that's you, Director Kelly, do you have anything about the curfew?
Let's talk about it.
Chief, anything on the Halloween curfew?
I think it should be the same as last year. I spoke to Ms. Pino, and we both agreed that we should not change it. It should be the same as last year.
And that was?
Same as last year.
Same as last year.
What does that mean?
The week,
Was nine-
7 days ahead of time, that's what we did
That's right.
before. Went from whatever Halloween falls, we did it 7 days prior to 9 o'clock. For the whole week.
9 o'clock.
Anyone, 9 o'clock during Halloween week from, it was Wednesday to Wednesday, so it would be, was it Friday?
Friday.
Friday.
Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda.
That's good.
So now we have to go on to stuff that's not on there.
Well, what
This is secret stuff.
what time is trick or treating? From whenever they get out of school till?
Yeah.
What time?
We've done it 2 to 7 before. 2 to
Till 7?
Yeah.
2 to 7 is what we.
And then everything is picked up at the party.
I don't.
Wasn't it 8?
Yeah, it coincides with the ends and then the party
Yeah.
starts.
Because that's when the Harry Williams thing.
So-
is.
Well,
Well,
it's
it's
7 and
six,
it's
it's 6 to 8, but yeah,
Yeah.
they usually come in, this is the party.
Before we go on the other residency things, we'll go around with, just go around a little bit, then, Mr. Brown, did you have anything else? that you
Yeah,
wanted to discuss?
I want to ask about Clemens Bridge Road. When this county's doing that, that's the city.
Thank you.
Oh, I missed that note.
That's the mayor.
I should have called on you first, I went right.
Okay, I'll
Miss, the mayor, please, elaborate.
They are going to do Clemens Bridge Road. There was a meeting 2 weeks ago where they made the announcement. I didn't get a notice to go, but the pastor next door, he went. He said, "Sis, why weren't you there?" I said, "I didn't know."
None of us got it, because when we met with the county the other day, he said to me, didn't you get the email? I said,
So they sent the email to the pastor, but not to us?
I did not get it, and neither did Nick Rich, because Nick was there, and he said, well, I sent it to you too, and Nick said, I didn't get it either.
So what else was
Mr. Ed
there?
said, yeah.
I will.
So they are going to do Clemens Bridge Road. That's what I asked Leonard about, and they're going to go into Ballington.
Okay.
So it's not the other side of the pipe, because that's.
So Black Horse
It's
Pike,
gonna go Black Horse Pike.
the Irish Hill Road?
It's gonna go, right, to Irish Hill Road, and then it's gonna pick up past the section that they did by Pine, down further, and then Barrington is picking up a section
Yes.
from where it comes over that bridge over to, what is that, the Turnpike or the Turnpike?
That's
Right,
the
the
Turnpike.
Turnpike, as it comes over, they're gonna do a section on their own, and then it's going all the way out to, Little Gloucester Road.
Yeah.
Little Gloucester, but
Yeah.
that's a shame.
That's where it's going.
So that will be done.
Oh, Little Gloucester's good.
Is there any way we can see if we can get any more storm drains?
Well, I think,
That's all
is there
they
usually
do.
Denise who get us involved?
It's all gonna be part of it.
Excuse me?
They're gonna put all the storm drains that's
Well,
necessary,
Oh, they are?
the curbing, the sidewalks, that's what.
They did say
Did you
that?
go?
That-
Did
She
you go?
told
Yeah,
the
that's what-
freeholders.
That's what Luke Capelli told me the other
Because
day.
that would be
Now,
awesome.
that's not what the guy.
No, that's not what-
That's not the case at all, because Rich and I talked to.
The freeholders being
he's the
politicians?
engineer.
No, yes.
He's the engineer for the county. We talked to Chris Knoll, you know Chris Knoll?
Yes.
We spoke to him. That's not quite the situation. He said, you start introducing a lot more storm drain, a lot more curbing, a lot more situations like that. They were very aware of the situation that happened with the church. They know about the situation with the church. He brought that up when he talked to us. But he said, you start adding storm drains, you start adding all that, now you're talking a lot more of this, and that changes everything.
Well, I will say this, the freeholders, they were excellent with us on
Yes.
Schubert, if everyone remembers. They
Yes,
put
yeah.
curbs and sidewalks in
Yes.
for us, which was great, which I understood was not typical for them to
We
put.
can follow up county engineer on exactly what this.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
it. That's it.
From the top, from the gas station down to the bottom of the hill, that there's one drain.
Yeah.
On,
And no curbing.
no
most of the
curb, yeah,
places, most of
exactly,
them.
so that's getting killed when that rain comes down,
Yeah.
just can't handle it.
Well, I think it's a great opportunity for us also, if the county isn't going to do some things, I'm not saying we're going to offer, but, you know, that we maybe at least know what they're not, what they're going to do or not going to do, so that
We'll find out
maybe we can
exactly.
fill in the
Well, I think he
holes.
said this was
Report
just the
back.
first, he said that to Rich and I, that this was just the first step. He said there's, you know.
They're going after engineering now, so it's going on.
Well, that's, it. This was, Chris Knoll said that to us.
They didn't award the contract, they just,
Right, they're just talking about what they're
With the
gonna do.
pre-construction,
Okay.
hearing. and
that's
all.
excellent.
Also, Saturday, the VFW gave a big party for the veterans again. They didn't have the parade, and it was over at Triton High School. And I know that they sent notices out for everybody to be there. I showed up, and of course I was there from the town. People were looking for you, because that's all it showed from the town. And I must say, it was really a great party. They had wonderful food. The men did the cooking, which is very nice. They had the hot dogs, hamburgers, and the best chicken wings that I've tasted in years. That good stuff. And the freeholders were there. The mayor of Gloucester Township was there. Of course, we all had to get up and say a few speeches. All I said was, I know the public's very happy that we didn't close the Blackbirds Pike. Why would everybody start laughing at clock? I let all the other ones do all that talking.
At least you and Patty were there to represent us, so
Yes.
that's what's nice about having many of us.
Also, I know you should probably have noticed that, right, remember you to Joyce, when I went to the mayor's meeting, the health department came in, so they're asking it, well, Joyce said she's going to go, having this Board of Health Summit up at the Camden County, up at the boathouse in Pennsylvania, where Pennsylvania is, and it's on October the 8th, from 5:30 to 8:30, and they didn't have to call because they're going to have dinner and all food for the people.
Yeah, I think Joyce is going to represent us, because it sounds like the county is reevaluating how the health departments are. So when the borough merged with the county, it sounds like we should have at least created at least an advisory committee that represents the borough
Yeah.
to them. So Joyce has always been our point person, so she'll at least find out what our requirements are, and then we'll be able to figure out,
Yeah, because you may have to have another board.
yeah, some type of a
They
committee.
had a 6-person board, and one council person was a liaison.
I don't know if it's as extensive anymore. I think they gave us options of different types.
I spoke to one of the other clerks, and she also had received this, and she talked to some various clerks around, and a lot of towns did the same thing, they dissolved their boards of health, because the county took over all the county basically did the work anyway. We really, when our Board of Health person got called, they had to turn it over to the county. And they dissolved it, they also, welfare was turned over to the county. So, a lot of the towns do not have any board of health. And some of the towns that did appoint advisories, they said they've never been met because there's really no reason, because the county does everything now. There really isn't much that the borough can do at all.
But it sounds like there's a statute saying we have to have
And we have to at least have an advisory.
it. Okay?
Okay, residency ordinance?
Yeah, we can jump on that real quick. The solicitor did do a quick draft, but I guess Mr. Wright would like to jump on that. Mr. Wright? Oh, you, Mr. Wright.
You want to continue around the table, and I basically have a report that's included in for both the fire side and the police side, or?
Yeah, I mean, this is something we're hoping to have this would be an ordinance, right?
Yes.
So we have I just read it real quickly.
This will be a first reading at the meeting on the 7th.
So preference of employment in all positions with the borough. We've decided that that's going to be fire and police,
No.
correct?
No.
No. Well, why don't you,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Did you go all around the table, or?
you jump in, because I think that's important.
That's not what I'm saying. I say I have a report that's the administrator's report, but if you
You
want,
want to defer to him and let him do his report, then,
Okay.
I can, that wasn't what I was saying. I just wanted to know if you wanted to allow council to finish.
because I think you're going to ask some of the same questions.
Yes, and there are things I do want to.
Yeah, they're going to be the same questions maybe, so. if you
Well,
want to jump on.
not in, not,
not always connected with that, I have other issues.
Right. There's basically two issues with regards to the residency issue. The fire side, we're looking at a volunteer preference, which basically gives the priority to the Runnemede Fire Department, as opposed to a residency ordinance. On the police side, we're looking for a residency ordinance, which I have draft language of the residency ordinance. I don't have the one, I'm waiting for the one for the volunteer preference. And then on the non-uniform side, I would say that we would stick with what we have right now. And basically, that, as crazy as it sounds,
And what do we have right now?
we have no residency preference. Without a residency preference, we have the ability to hire a resident right now on the non-uniform side. So we don't have an issue there. If somebody comes in and applies for a test, if they're a resident, then we have the ability to hire them. If we have a residency ordinance, then we can only hire residents. So we had gone back and forth on that, and we originally decided that we weren't going to do a residency ordinance. So I'd say that we would stick with our original decision there, that on non-uniform, that we would stick with not having a residency requirements because it gives us more flexibility, but it is inclusive of residents. On the police side, you will never get to a resident if you do not have a residency requirement. So I think that after we went back and revisited the process, that you basically, if you get a state list, you start with disabled veterans, then from there you go to veterans, then you go to family members of deceased police and fire. And I'm not saying all those categories aren't great categories, but there's a cost involved. Because again, it doesn't sound right when you hear a disabled veteran, but somebody could have lost a finger and has that qualifies as a disability. So then you have to have a medical exam that basically says, is this person capable of being a police officer? So it could be a hearing loss, it could be a vision loss. So basically you're going to be going through batch after batch of the list when you're going through the interview and selection process, and you're going to have additional costs related to medical exams, and then you could end up in lawsuits where your doctor says that they're not qualified to be a police officer, and their doctor's saying they are. It's not worth going down that road.
That's why we're going with
So,
residency.
right.
With the uniforms.
Okay, so
Right. Now, a local residency list will include veterans, so you're not excluding the veterans. And basically, you're making them more local, so you're respecting the veterans, but they're local.
It is
So,
we understand.
so that's basically where that goes. And again, on the fire side, it makes sense. In the department I was in, we had the volunteer preference because they're the people that have trained in your organization. They know your organization. I double checked with the chief, and we do have minimum requirements. That was my concern. Because some places have had issues where once you put it out there that you're doing hirings, then maybe people stop responding to help the process along. So we do have minimum standards. They have to keep up or else they wouldn't be qualified. So they have to be a member in good standing.
Okay, so we'll do a first reading at this next meeting. For
Correct.
residency.
Right,
Okay,
and
we're at
then
your-
we'll have the task of putting all that together, but I'll work with you.
Got 2 weeks.
Okay. The next issue is, we had the accident and we lost the patrol car, and I'm looking at purchasing an Explorer. Now, I did get an email from the CFO, and he said that he hadn't approved that. And when we met informally, I had said I really wanted to move on that because I wanted the car replaced.
Right.
So I know that we're getting about $7,900 for the old one from the insurance company. We're going to replace it for about $7,000, which is a lot more than
Yeah.
before. So I'd like to move on that and get that Explorer.
Right. I directly, respectfully, I'm not in favor of that at this point in time. If we could have a subcommittee meeting to discuss that, I don't have a problem with that. We do have other vehicles available, so we don't need to fast track a purchase. I don't think that just because it's on a lot, it's a reason to jump on the purchase at this point in time. I've had some informal discussions with the chief, and I told him that we could sit down and go over them. I was a little surprised at getting the quote and the request to purchase immediately. I'm just not in favor of fast tracking the purchase at this point in time.
Maybe in November?
Well, we can't do anything until at least November because the funding will not be in place until we can do a transfer after November 1st. So we can't do anything until
So if we
November
have a
1st.
subcommittee meeting and maybe in November,
Why are you in such a hurry to get this vehicle?
we lost the car.
Okay.
I know, why are we going from a vehicle that was, say, 25,000 to an Explorer? Why are we going from a car to a?
Was it far?
Was it SUV?
No, it was a Crown Vic, and we've been replacing Crown Vics with Chargers.
Yes.
And we replaced our Expeditions with Tahoes. And I think that there was an issue with, there wasn't a large availability for black Chargers. I think the chief had found a black Explorer,
Oh,
and I think Mr. Wright is saying that we're changing kind of in midstream. I think the director's point was, we need to replace a car. We've already decided at the beginning of the year that we were gonna buy one car at the end of the year minimum. And I think there's just a reason we have to,
Respectfully, but I also need a garbage truck, and I also need equipment in the department. So that thing is not a priority. There are other vehicles, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna, like, there is no way. Fire truck? That's not even talking about.
okay, I think though that, I think the committee can look at it
We
and,
can look at
yes.
this and maybe hope for something in November. The LPRs have been installed. The LPR is now installed and the men are being trained. I guess everybody knows what that means, a
No,
license
I
plate
don't.
reader. License plate reader has been installed
Oh, I
on
know
the
what that
Charger.
reader is, yeah.
And the reader is.
Watch when you drive.
It's becoming effective and the men are being trained. And I gave you a request to prepare a shared agreement with Barrington and Haddon Heights on the investigation unit. So you're looking at that for me, aren't you? And that meeting is October the 16th. I would like to be able to look at that before that and then present it to the two towns on the 16th.
Okay, so you want to see, you want me to get you a draft ordinance well in advance of that so you can look at it? We can
A
find-
shared service
I'm
agreement.
sorry, I apologize.
Yeah.
Yes, a draft shared services agreement that you can look at and then we can fine tune it and you can have it in hand in final form before your meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Video cameras, you know, that's a state mandate.
well, that's
Is it on the
the,
dashboard or?
well, right now the law says it has to be on the dash.
The dash.
So if we do replace this car, it sounds like we're gonna have to put a camera on there. Is that correct?
The mandate.
It is it is not passed yet.
Oh, the government didn't sign it?
You do not sign it yet. Possibility that if you purchase a car in 2015, it will be mandated. But they don't know who's going to fund it, or you're going to have to replace all your, like, so if some of your cars don't have it, you have to furnish all your cars, and who's going to pay for it? So I think they're working out the problems, but at this point, so that's what I'm saying, in 2015, most likely it's going to be passed. I already contacted Borough Township about who they use, because they've been using it for approximately 10 years.
What does a typical camera cost on a car?
I had a proposal there that's
So
six,
36,000.
for 36,000, that was.
36,000 on top of the cost of the car?
Oh, well, six, it was for 6 cars.
So 6,000.
Six cars.
Say one.
For 6 cars was 36,000, it also came with the server. Because what you need to do, you need to download it every night. So if someone comes in and makes a internal affairs complaint, you can go into it, you can pull it out.
So it's not necessarily 6,000 a car, it's because you gotta buy the server.
You have to buy this just because our server, he came in, he looked at it, he said our server cannot handle it.
Okay.
So we would have to buy it. You know, lots of counters, servers, lots much longer.
Is it cheaper to do a vest, you know, have the body camera?
I think, yes, it's cheaper to do the vest, but at this point, they're not mandating the vest yet. But I think they're gonna mandate the car, so I think we should do what the mandate says and get ahead of
Yeah,
it.
we'll look at it, I'll look at it. But I actually, in my own personal opinion, I think both, really, is you have on the car and then.
Because there's no
That's the
doubt,
future.
when, if you go in for domestic and you don't have that on you don't know what you're going
But when the
into.
car's pulling somebody over and.
Sure, because you're going into that house and you don't have that
As
camera.
you can see, if
I think it's a problem.
cameras in some of the vehicles across the country, you would be able to answer some of those questions
Yeah.
that are being brought up.
Okay. So we're looking at the car.
And there's going to be 2 men on next week. Well, I guess on the 7th. Jennifer didn't say right, means you're going to honor them.
All right, so we'll put that on the agenda then, we're gonna, you'll do a presentation to.
Yes, we're going to give them a peace award. They arrested a burglary suspect who broke into a house and stole a 9mm gun. We were able to recover it.
All right, great, that's good.
Great.
Is there anything else?
The committee met with the EMS supervisors last week because we have staffing issues. And we've talked about this, that we're not getting the coverage, we're losing revenue, and it's a real problem. we have some ideas, and the chief is looking at making an application to the Safer Grant to hire 2 full-time EMS firefighters. So that's on the table, it's being discussed.
Well, council would have to approve if we're gonna hire two full-time people. We're looking at
And
it,
we're looking at the Safer Grant to help.
because there's a
that.
cost, we're paying part-timers now. Full-timers will probably cost more, and there'll be more reliability, more coverage. So it's something we're looking at, we're in the preliminary stage of that right now. I don't mean to jump in, but that's what we're talking about.
That's exactly right.
I know the contract is very clear on certain things.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the old engine was sold to Elsinboro for $7,500. That's it.
Well, we have to approve that.
I know you do, but.
So do you want that on the agenda
That
then?
would be excellent.
So I have to have a resolution.
I don't have anything, I know Fred mentioned it.
I think the other municipalities are willing to pay $7,500. I think, is everyone okay selling it? I don't know if anybody's aware. It's an old engine, supposedly they have very little value because of
We have
whatever.
2 others, so.
And we have 2 others that, so it's not like we're gonna be shorthanded at all. It's an opportunity to sell it.
So we're approving the sale of engine, 27 to Barrington for $7,500.
Ellsberg.
Elsinboro.
Elsinboro.
We give it
You're making up, you got that order? Okay, so we're gonna sell we'll approve that, we'll approve, pending them giving us the money, right? Rich?
I haven't
They
seen
gave
the
us
money.
that they had to pay us?
I don't know what the story is with the money yet.
'Cause remember Barrington, we gave the bus a lot sooner.
No, this one they're gonna pay us in advance.
We didn't know it was coming?
We didn't know it was on.
He actually asked if we needed certified, that would be nice.
Okay,
So
so-
we've
Here's
had.
another issue. Linda Meridio told me about that piece of ground that was given to her, vacated and given to her. She wants to give us an easement, but with conditions.
Okay.
And the conditions are.
Let me just give everybody back up. There's a strange piece of land that goes up the hill up Garden Terrace. It's owned by, the property owner owns it. If you saw, and many years ago, the borough paved and stopped where the borough's property line is. But the road continues, turns around, comes back. Right now, our public works department plows, we pick up the trash, we do all. It gives access to all the rears of all these other properties, which is a little hairy because there's access to about 6 different neighbors put their trash in the back of their
And
property.
they use that as their.
We went out there
also.
and it was proved to us, we made them do their homework. They had to show us that they own the land. She proved that she owned
We
it.
walked that ground.
It was a survey, we found
No, but
one
we walked-
survey mark.
We walked the ground.
Yeah, and it's pretty obvious that it's owned by her.
She can do several things. She can
Do nothing.
allow us to have an easement, but if that is the case, she wants us to take down the dead trees and to pave that road.
You know what, you are rolling over for her.
She's gonna propose
But she has been, listen, my only complaint with her was she was very quick to say, oh, well, isn't her daughter married to Chucky Burns? That was one of the things, and she made a very clear point to bring that up.
I don't think that matters.
It did matter, because that was what she was using as a pivotal point to address this issue. I was there that first day, and it was like, well, I want this to be my road. I want it to be my road. And I said to her then,
Close
while
it
you
off.
both were there, then that stops garbage pickup, we'll stop everything. We'll stop all service on this road. And it was like, well, no, I don't want that. And it was like,
Well, let me just make it
well,
clear again, and Steve, the property comes up, and it is her property. She literally could put a fence up.
We went there.
I was out there.
And you know,
Steve did go out
Talking
there.
about this.
where it gets a little, listen, it's her property. And when we went out there, she could do nothing, and just maintain the status quo. If she wanted us to take control of it, which is what she's saying, that she wants us to now, it becomes our road. And the advantage for us making it our road,
But to give us this easement, she wants the trees cut down.
well, let me just explain how I see it.
What else?
It's
What
a,
else?
well, I wouldn't want an
The other
easement.
option is to close it off and use it as her ground,
Yeah.
and then we wouldn't have access.
The only advantage that I would say for the borough,
Which she can do.
That's fine.
the only advantage that I say, like I said, I'm still in opinion, that, because I go both ways on this one, it would negatively impact all those other residents. If everybody knows the property goes like this. Or vice versa, am I?
It goes up.
It goes up.
So all the residents use this access to get to the back of the property.
But isn't there also an easement that runs, as you come off of that hill, that runs right through the back of that one house that sits down below?
There's a sewer
There's
easement.
a sewer.
There are
easement
sewer
that runs
easements that
right
allow,
through there.
which is very tricky because those people could say, we're cutting off your easement.
Exactly.
So let me just, Len, you guys listen, I know where you're
Yeah.
feeling this, but it sounds like it's the opposite of what we've done getting rid of roads. Here's a road that benefits the residents, all those people. I don't know any of those people who live on
No,
our
but there are a lot of rentals up along there.
Yeah.
Several of those
They're all-
houses. that
mostly all
use that
rentals.
back, they're all-
Yeah.
Well, I think there's
Mostly.
one that is a resident, the rest are all
But
rentals.
these would, if we have a history of always plowing and picking up the trash doing this. It sounds like to me that she wants to formalize this agreement. And I think she's using the word easement because she thinks that an easement gives her still control of the property. Typically easements
An
don't give
easement-
anybody control of anything.
Well, she owns the ground, so.
But when she grants an easement, she no longer really owns the ground.
Oh, she owns it.
She owns it, she pays taxes on it, which she doesn't pay.
Well, that's another thing,
Sure she
that's
does.
another thing.
Sure she does.
No, we're not positive about that. We wanted to look at that with the
I
assessor.
have this
She's
case, I
already-
have this case in another
she's-
town.
You have this
I
case?
I got the owner of the property, and the tax assessor said, he still owns it.
Even though it's a public.
Even though it's public.
You know, one thing you gotta think about with this
She
guy
has
is,
that right to.
if we were to, if it sounds like she's ready to make a decision, and her decision is one of two things. She closes it off, which is fine. We stop picking the trash up, we stop plowing it, we don't do that. But it negatively impacts those other people.
They do have access.
They have access.
They have access from the front. I'm not gonna deny that. I'm not gonna deny that.
They're on the,
I'm not gonna deny that. She's not asking us to buy it. We've always maintained it anyway. I hear what you're saying. It sounds like you're saying that it's a little bit of extortion. I think we need to evaluate it before we jump to any conclusions.
Of course.
Go look at it, because that road does provide access for all those people. And if the borough just backs off,
But she
those six
also,
people.
she has also complained about the access to those people.
But it sounds like she's willing to grant it, because
But
if she
I don't
gives us an
understand that,
easement,
Because I was
Oh,
there that,
on
right, on certain terms,
conditions,
because
yeah.
she complained openly, that day that I was there with you two, she complained openly about the traffic that came up behind
Sure,
there,
the
that was
road.
questionable, that was like, because these were rental homes, and there
but what are her
weren't.
conditions? Are only to maintain it.
maintain, pave the road
Well,
because it's
maintain
falling
it.
apart,
Maintain it.
and cut down the trees.
So it's something we should look at. Well, here's the consequence. If the consequence is she blocks it off,
Cut down the trees.
all those people don't have access.
It'll be a lot of fights.
It'd be a lot, and I don't know, legally,
Who are you gonna?
they've had this access for all these years.
Owns it now?
Well, they may have a claim. They, as other people, may have a claim.
Adverse possession?
Well, not adverse possession, but it's called a prescriptive easement. They may have an easement, and they have been created by her allowing.
For so many years.
Allowing
Right.
use of an easement all these times.
And I'm not
Now,
concerned about
it's not their primary access, it doesn't, so there's a lot of things that mitigate potentially against that, but it's a fight, it's a law school litigation, but it doesn't impact the council, it doesn't impact the
No, it doesn't.
I'm just, that's the.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to do anything. I'm just, making
It
everybody,
doesn't impact.
yeah, and remember, this is, I hate to say, her offer. It's only an offer. If, we can always counter offer and say, we will take it over, but you have a good point. We'll pave it at our discretion. We'll replace trees at our discretion.
Because when we were out there, she clearly wanted nothing to do with it. She wanted that piece of property, and she didn't want anybody to have access to it. Now all of a sudden it's changed, which, okay, I'm fine for a happy medium. I'm great for compromise, that's fine. But she was very adamant that she did not want anyone to have
Well, this
access
is
to
a
that.
pretty big change
road.
then, if she's willing to allow the borough to take it over.
She said if you did, that she wanted to be paid for it. That was
Oh,
her.
originally?
Yes.
Oh, no,
The
no,
original.
she didn't say anything about
That was
being
what-
paid.
No, that was when we first went there.
It's the trees and the pavement.
We're positive she was. The only, we're not about to spend money to get a survey, but she provided the survey.
Yes, and we walked,
And we walked, and we were able to pretty much see the survey lines. And that's when you're right, we saw there's a sewer easement, there's a lot, it's very complex.
We accept the easement, then we have to accept. We'll have to get it resurveyed if we accept the easement, that's what I have.
Oh, sure.
And that whole
Well,
back
then
area
she should
was
pay for that.
everything.
Then I don't see the borough paying for that, though. She should pay for the new survey.
Well, it would only be of the property we're taking, because it would become borough.
No, it's not our property. It would never be
Right
our
away.
property.
It'd be right away.
Yeah.
We can look at it. I think that you gotta remember,
What should I
do we
say?
want,
So
that we're
is it
considering,
that little section?
maybe we have to talk to her.
Yeah.
I just think that you got a great point that we don't have to do anything. But what happens when, nothing, if it was one resident, I would care about one resident who's gonna be negatively impacted because we didn't consider something.
I've clearly been up there, so
I was up there 2 years ago.
Yeah, and he walked the ground.
But you can, well, I was up there too, with it, and the condition of that entire road, once you get past her entrance to her house, is horrible.
I agree, and it's back on the list, I agree, there's a lot more things that need to be done before paving that road, but if anybody has to go, you guys can go. Patty, do you want to say anything about Halloween before you, because I know you have a meeting.
Halloween is going to be Friday, October, I'll say that.
Say the caucus and cancel, you need anything? 'Cause I know they had to
Excuse me, Council President, I do need one item before,
go. Before they leave?
yes.
Okay,
Actually, I just need 2/3, so it depends how many people are leaving.
2.
Bob's leaving, he has to go too.
Okay.
8 o'clock.
This is your issue, you may want to. Because there's going to be 2 more weeks before we have the council meeting, I'm going to request that we do 2 Chapter 159s for the 2013 and 2014 Clean Communities grants to insert them in the budget.
That's fine. Do you need action tonight?
Yes.
All right, let me explain it again. What Rich is doing is he's carving out money that is separate and only can be used for clean communities. It's not a big deal. It's Section 159, it just means the money's segregated, you can't touch it.
We're adding it to the budget document that was adopted.
And hopefully what, trash cans or something like that.
Recycling.
So do we need a motion? Are you looking for action right now?
Yeah.
All right, so resolution 14135.
They fought.
I don't know what number it is.
All right, resolution 14135 or what number it is?
I know it's not 135, because that resolution from the last meeting table. First one
Resolution
is
14 something?
Clean Communities, 2013, 14,491.66. Need a motion?
Anyway, can we have a motion?
Also move, and I'll second that motion.
Is this a roll call, because we're moving money, roll call?
Mr. Kahadas?
Yes.
Mrs. Casio?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
And Mr. Rude?
Yes.
6 ayes.
Okay.
The second one is 2014 Clean Communities in the amount of $15,452.91.
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
Roll call. Thank you.
Mr. Kapadas?
Yes.
Mrs. Casio?
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
And Mr. Rude? 6 ayes.
Okay. Sorry, we ran a little late, guys.
Excuse me, can we add one more item?
Go ahead.
Basically, I have a request from the police department. This is personnel, it will be one resolution. I have a request from the police department for a substitute crossing guard. I'll give this sheet to Joyce at 10:50 an hour. And we did an interim appointment pending the council meeting of a temporary laborer because we had 2 people that were out for personnel reasons and we needed staffing. So we hired a 6-month temporary laborer. So I have both of them.
Do we need action right now?
I think you're actually,
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the
I make a motion.
affirmation
One
resolution.
is Francis Sesko as a substitute crossing guard at 10:50 an hour, and Michael Alicia, a temporary labor at 13.18 per hour, a 6-month temporary.
Okay. Have a motion from Mrs. Moore.
I'll second.
Ms. Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call, sorry. Roll
Mr.
call.
Kapadas?
Yes.
Mrs. Paxson?
Mrs. Owens.
Yes.
Mrs. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
And Mr. Rude?
Yes.
6 ayes.
We're not done. We used to go to 11 o'clock, you know.
Well, that's good.
Oh, I still have a half hour.
Thank you. You guys good? You guys need to leave?
Fine.
Oh, you don't have to go?
Yeah, oh, yeah, so, I mean, we're fine, you know.
Oh,
Anything
whenever you
else?
gotta Ms. Moore, do you have anything else?
Do not at this time.
Nothing else? Nothing else? Mr. Root, I know you've been sitting there waiting, you just blurred out stuff.
What I want to talk to, I'm not going to talk about what's going on with the Parks and Recreation, but what I need to put in front of the council is the fact that all the problems that happened with the lake in the last couple of months been brought to the attention of Parks and Recreation, that we have no access to our lake. So I approached the Police Chief Daly, Charles Ramon, who's coordinator of OEM, and the Fire Marshal in Birdie. All are backing me and will propose letters stating that we need access to the lake for emergency reasons, and that we have to take care of some access on the Rowan Road to be able to get a 4-wheel drive vehicle down there with a boat on it.
Just a small path, right?
Yeah.
Now, do you need, from type of drawing, or how are we gonna get down there? Do we know how we're gonna do it?
We spoke to, Pat and I spoke to Brian Marsh from the Fish and Wildlife, who went over the lake with us, who will be on my report on the council meeting, but he will identify trees for us. He said he'll come down and be happy to identify trees that we should remove, that won't have any structure, that don't have any structure on the ecosystem down there.
I mean, just remove
So
as little
what
as
are they
possible.
thinking, you're putting a road all the way, that's a high.
It's
It really is
Yeah.
high.
it's the only gradual point to the,
So Railhead is better than on Singley?
yeah,
That's just too
Single's
difficult.
just a drop.
It's too difficult.
Yeah, there's a road coming off of Shepherd now. I mean, there's that access road that comes
Yeah,
down.
but it ends, and then it's a big drop.
It's not a big drop, really.
It's gradual.
It is
Yeah,
gradual.
Is it deceiving because we dump stuff back there? Is that
Yeah,
why?
it hasn't been
Cleared that
20
away.
years
It's been a long time.
since it's been
You
cleared.
can- I mean,
Back
it's
when I was
slope.
a kid, it was, Yeah.
Meandering slope.
yes, it was a nice walk. And I walked up there the other day, and it's not that bad. So it's possible. And if dirt needs to be added, we could add dirt to make it.
Is this something we're gonna do in-house, or do you think we need to bring some
We
contractors
have to
in?
clear
or-
that area first. That's the biggest problem.
I think I could, if I meet with Mrs. Moore and maybe Nick, see what trees there might be a possibility we can get down there without moving any big trees, because it's a lot of overgrowth. It's a lot
And it's a
of,
lot of small trees.
Yeah.
There's not a lot
It's
of
just a-
large
yeah,
trees
it
down
is-
there.
there
There's
isn't.
saplings that if
There's
you're
How,
just
how
managing-
wide of roads would you need?
I'd
15
imagine.
feet?
Yeah, I think the rule of thumb, if you can ask the
20?
engineers, is a pole, right? Isn't that the width of the street? 15 feet?
15 feet. 15 feet wide.
Yeah.
On that deep slope.
It's not as deep as
Well,
you
it used to
think.
do it.
Right, it used to be a much bigger area.
Yeah, there's a couple plateaus. It goes down and
It
goes
doesn't go
down
as deep as
to
you
the
think.
lake.
Chris,
It's
when
not
I was
like over by
growing up, it
Singley
went
where they
like
just
this.
come
So the truck would go down with, there's a platform with a boat there, right? Is that what you're thinking?
No,
it's just the
So it's just back in-
That's
It's
like-
going to go back the boat to
And
the
then there'll be an
lake.
area where the truck can turn around and then come
No.
back up.
Back itself up or whatever.
I'm talking
The
about
truck
like
most
a huge
likely at the
vehicle.
back.
It's just for an emergency.
The boat would back, the truck would back.
God forbid there was a drowning or
So
something.
it'll back up to the front.
That'll drive up.
5 feet.
No, back down, then
No,
drive
you
up.
can't drown in
Back
that.
So there'll be a turnaround.
No, you back down.
The middle of
You
it.
can turn around up top.
So it's gonna back down when it's going.
That's what
Yes.
water rescue does that. That's
And
what
then
Well, let's see
pull
how
out.
nice we can make it, because I have seen pictures of
I
it
think,
being very grassy right in front of
This is
that.
beautiful.
So maybe this will be the beginning of cleaning it up a little bit.
oh,
having
I
access.
hope so. Right,
They
well,
just
you know
call
that
it
is nothing, Brian Moore shut that
Yeah,
ground.
it's
It
come
says
up
take
tomorrow.
the trees down, you take it, everybody do whatever that guy.
Yeah,
Make sure you
no,
get some
he's-
email in writing.
That
or
guy
something.
is freaky knowledgeable of
Yeah,
trees.
but if
That
you,
area, remember,
if
that
you get a pass by him to do
ecosystem-
stuff.
Yeah,
you
but
can-
ecosystem or not, that area used to be open and clear. I mean, that.
I've seen pictures of it.
It was
Yeah,
open.
it was very open.
It was
Yeah,
always
as-
open.
They're also
As
supposed to
bad as
leave
the
it
lake
here.
looks, and everybody thinks
There's
the
a
bad
great
is,
ecosystem.
he was very impressed
Here's
with the way
There's
it's.
fish, there's
He-
birds, there's
He's
that.
going to give us some wood boxes for some wood duck.
Yeah,
And,
he's all there, they can't do much, they can't like offer us any grants, but being partners with them will help us get grants,
Yeah.
so,
It's a good start.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
good start.
But what I think we're playing with fire, not having this access right now. And every day, I don't want to say everyone done tomorrow, but every day we wait is a day somebody could get seriously hurt.
And we
or-
also
or-
have that same
you know.
potential down at 3 acres.
To get back there.
Because I think there should be a boat launch.
I know that's been brought up.
A potential.
Right.
for us to-
And this obviously would be, if we continue to maintain the lake, they'll be able to access it to put the chemicals or do any cleaning up. or
Yeah,
anything. That's the idea, this will be access for everything.
He'll be able to back his boat up to it.
So any kind of walkways on the side would be aesthetically, not necessarily.
Any walkways, did you say?
Well, what happened originally was, Pat,
Yeah, well,
we put a little bit of dirt there to try to get down there, and that's how the guys got down there that first day, but I think that it was, the incline was like,
Yeah.
Brian Marsh's suggestion was that your paths be made out of stone,
okay.
stone or even some wood chips.
Wood chips,
Or, pours pavers.
Well, this is a great start.
Everything's supposed to be natural. It's a good start.
Yeah, she wasn't looking to.
Oh.
The mayor?
And that's it.
And then you're still working on the fountain?
Fountains, all, that's, the process is that.
But that will go into the springtime.
I'm not gonna, we're not gonna process, because if we jam everything in and get it all put in properly, we'll probably have it in for like 4 days and then have to take it out for the winter, so
Okay.
there's no sense in doing it for the fall, we'll do it in the spring.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Rick?
That's it.
Mr. Brown, do you have anything else? Mr. Wright, what is yours?
Yes. I think I should go first next time.
You paid for it, big money.
How much in? I'll start off with a rundown on our status on.
You guys gotta go?
personnel issues.
Gotta go, you gotta go.
Mr. Wright. 10 minutes.
Is there anything for the two engineers?
No, you guys are.
Only under the finance section, I had the emergency procurement surplus and special emergency surplus, but you've already addressed that.
Okay.
We're good on that. That'll be an action item for the doctor review.
Right, we'll work on that one, how to get this paid.
Yes.
For that.
Okay.
Thank you. If
Okay.
you would be excused, Mark, now.
Absolutely.
Mr. Wisniewski.
Are we ready to go?
Go, thank you. Oh, yeah, absolutely. You have everything that you know. And the residents get thing, I know you wanted to talk about the car, so we got that lease on the, talking about it.
We're talking. That's the important thing.
Okay. And we got the grease trap ordinance under control.
I'm listening.
Thank you. Under personnel, I'm just gonna run down the 4 issues. On the fire side, the contract is totally resolved for the period 1/1/13 through 12/31/16. The final issue that was outstanding was the time grievance that was filed with PERC. That's now finalized, all the times have been properly reflected in the system. Fred signed off on it, I signed off on it, he sent a copy to Keith, so we are totally done the fire contract. The other item on there was volunteer preference, first reading, put out their reading, which we've already addressed. On the public works side, I've discussed it with the director, just to let you know, it's a closed session item, but we received communications from the local assistant shop steward requesting discussions on contract terms to be addressed prior to 6/30/15, and basically it's related to hours of operations. And we'll deal with that in closed session at a future date. CWA is now no longer CWA, they are now GW, which is Government Workers Union. I received one piece of correspondence from them that was basically saying to start taking out union dues as of August, which we now have everyone having union dues taken out. I've received no further communications regarding the contract or any issues from them to date, and no further issues regarding other units, so no further communications.
The filing on the issue of one person, getting benefits, et cetera.
Right, that was,
Scheduled.
okay.
Again, October or November, but I think it's a letter will come to you, because I saw it when I came back.
Do you want to have a closed session at the council meeting to at least, did you want to go over any of the stuff in a closed session at the council meeting to tell us about it?
I think it's something we've already discussed, so I don't think there's much there.
But I mean, even that other stuff, the stuff at the public works, if you want that.
Yeah, that we'll discuss.
So Joyce, you'll put a closed on there just for contract negotiations? It's contractual, right?
Right, because of the next item, we're also, with regards to the police department, we had the residency requirement for new hires for first reading. I have several samples of language on that one. That one's easier to deal with than the volunteer preference was. We're currently working, the personnel committee is working with the union reps regarding, I guess, opening up or revisiting the current police contract. It will help us deal with time, having more officers on the street, and a number of things that would be, I think, beneficial to both sides. Again, if we were ready at that point in time, which I think we may be, on the 7th, we could discuss that in closed session for an update. Basically, I talked to the rep tonight, and they're ready to go. So hopefully by the end of the week, we can sit down.
Ready to go, I think council has to give them a proposal.
Right.
That's where we're at.
So, we won't get too far.
Yeah, we
That's a
don't
closed
have to
session.
find the weeds on that. Great.
A DP update, this is all under the personnel side of the personnel hat. I did have communications this week with the representative from State DEP regarding the sewer discharge. They did receive, John confirmed that they received John Gunn's response as the license operator. They're only waiting on one thing, and that is the final adoption of the grease trap ordinance, which is one of the items in the letter that John sent out. I am of the belief that once they receive that, we're more than likely going to receive a fine. And the way that this process has been explained to me, that, and we don't know what the amount will be, if we received a $5,000 fine, you automatically can apply for an automatic 50% abatement. So then we'd be looking at a $2,500 fine, which I believe the number he said, 75% of it could be used for a community project that helps the environment. It's been strongly recommended that we look down the path of community awareness regarding Crush Lake and the impacts of runoff of fertilizer into the lake. So basically we could use the money for something that would be beneficial to the area, and then with the small residual that may have to be spent. So that's basically where we're at right
So
now.
it's not even a true fine, they want us to spend.
Well, it's a fine, they're just letting us,
They want us to Well, it's an interesting way of,
But again, they're basically saying, hey, you shouldn't have done this, this is what you do in the future. We say, okay, we hear you, so they say, do something good for the community. I like the way that works, that's better than going somebody else's bank account. We dealt with the 2 appointments. We do need to revisit, and this will be an item for the closed session, the vacation sick update that we did over the summer. There's a couple things that need to be tweaked on that, as well as the health benefits ordinance.
Okay.
The ordinances that we had updated.
For the non-contract.
In general. So we can address that at that point in time. Happy to announce that I'll give you a brief update, and here's some screenshots to take a look at.
the GPS.
On Friday, we installed the fleet it's more related, it's much more than GPS, it's a fleet management system. This basically will allow us to plan better. It will be able to give us information. I'll be able to tell you at the end of the week how many miles the street sweeper drove, so the amount of reporting that we'll be able to give is very good. Each vehicle will be able to be set up with automatic updates saying, okay, you went 5,000 miles, it's time for your oil change. And then it will track that information along with PO numbers in it. From a management point of view, it will track what the vehicles did. So when we're in snowstorms and things of that nature, we'll know what each vehicle plowed, what streets they were on. So it's a very powerful tool that also has the ability to know where your fleet is. So if the bus was to be stolen from the public works lot, I would get an alert that it left. I would get an alert that it left the lot, and then I can tell you exactly where it is by logging on to the app. So that's right. We had public works training, and as part of training, I did give them an overview on that. I also said that because we'll be lending our vehicles to people, we will have stickers made that's on every dash that says this vehicle is monitored by fleet management, so that we don't have a neighboring town borrowing the truck not know that it's in there. We were very upfront about the fact that it was going in and how we're using it. Right now, I'm reviewing it because we're going to look at the data that's coming out, and then we'll develop policies and procedures on how we're going to use the data. So that brings us to the Fire Marshal's office. Fire Marshal's office did their annual review of the borough properties, Borough Hall, Harry Williams Building, and Senior Citizen Center. Basically, there's some issues that the POSHA is actually focusing on right now. One of the letters I sent out today, everybody has a copy in your mailbox, is regarding extension cords. You can have power strips, but you cannot plug an extension cord into a power strip, and you cannot daisy chain power strips. So we were digging in a couple offices for that. And yes, because my ad machine was into a power strip, I didn't know you couldn't do that. So I got rid of that. Also, there's issues, and I think they're related to the power outage that we had. All the emergency backup lights have batteries in them. I was told by our fire marshal rep that they are trickle chargers, but for some strange reason, we had a high number of them fail throughout all of our properties. And I think it's related to the power outage. Maybe we need to verify that A, they have trickle chargers on them, and B, we probably didn't do a follow-up because they did the inspections earlier in the year. I think the power outage happened after the inspections were done. Meaning our guys go around and they change them out, so we need to replace them. And there's a bunch of ceiling tiles that are missing throughout, upstairs in the conference room, in the community center. So throughout Borough Hall, there's some ceiling tiles that were missed. So that was basically the main issues that were problems. So we will. The only issue at Harry Williams was there was a smell, like a fake gas smell in the kitchen. We're going to have PS come out and take a look. I don't think it was obviously the fire marshal was there and there was a serious problem, I think they would have called 911. But there was an odor that they think should be investigated. So, and again, I just received this last Thursday. So we're basically moving forward with that.
So, I just want to add on the GPS thing, like, just to give you guys an idea, like, this is an alert that came, it was all over the week. That they're going to call for, sewer department, they got a call, so the, sewer department one truck was traveling 12 miles an hour along, and it says like for a public works sewer department, work was traveling at 12:48 a.m. and it gives you the date, so it sends an alert. It's awesome. It's the best thing ever.
Right.
And they
So,
will adjust.
but the useful part of that tool is basically just seeing like yard waste history. PW1, I believe, was the 32-yarder. So it's operating in the area. So from the start of the route to the end of the route is 2 hours. So we can look that week to week, and we can look at efficiencies. There's I was talking with the training rep today, and she was basically looking at the idle time of the vehicle. She said that's a big thing that most customers are concerned about, because I think she said that, and I don't have the number in front of me, there is a dollar value per hour that it costs to have a vehicle idle. So there's dollar value, just retraining on how you operate things, and actually I thought the bus might have been one of them. Because you would think that when you drop somebody off, you're sitting out there waiting, and actually the bus was going to row. So, but she said there wasn't really concern, there was only one vehicle, and there may be logic behind that, but there's lots of operational uses. Listen to read.
He does it all the time.
All right, on the finance side, the auditors will be back in on Thursday. Our goal is October 31st to finalize the audit report that goes along with the financials and budgets that are already done. We did the 2 Chapter 159s, looking for a first reading of bond ordinance. I think the Finance Committee should meet before the 7th so we can go over that. It will definitely include funding for the new low packer and some other priorities in the borough.
Areas, roads,
Right.
equipment.
Correct, and we're going to
The
see
amount
what...
is 325,000 or what?
The bond amount was estimated to be at about $1 million. That's what we put in for down payment. Now, if we're running efficiencies in other departments that we can transfer money in, if we need to tweak that amount, we might be able to increase the down payment amount, but we'll have to look pretty close at where the finances are, if we're going to change that. But as far as the original $1 million, there's the balance of fire truck, the difference between the two. Something that's been pending, it just hasn't moved forward yet, is the approval of the municipal court debt collection agreement. And this one works very strangely. This one, we have to approve it, or you have to approve it. When you approve the agreement, the judge has to authorize it, endorse it, and then it gets sent to the AOC, and then they say, okay, you can do it or not. And then we can enter into the contract. So we originally thought that we needed their permission first. They said, no, you enter into the agreement, and then, which seems backwards to me, and then they tell you whether it's okay to do it or not. But so we're looking to move forward with that.
We did formats that were, kind of not specifically pre-approved, but generally pre-approved from them, from the.
I think everybody was okay with this. Does everybody remember the idea that it was a debt collection, it was allowed by the courts? It was not,
It's been a while.
Why don't we put it on then? Let's put it on to pass a resolution to agree.
Who were we, it's been so long, I don't even know who we're.
Correct.
On the 7th,
He means right now. It's on for the 7th. That's why this is my 7th agenda.
Let's put it on the 7th, I love it.
It's gonna be on for the 7th?
Yes.
Why?
Why? If we agree, vote.
Blocks, we'll do blocks.
we'll do blocks and let's do blocks, and let's set up these ordinances.
It doesn't, it's people who don't pay. It's not even, it's a non-issue.
Right.
These are courts.
The other items where we stepped on, sale of fire truck, emergency procurement for sewer pipes, and special emergency, we already addressed those issues. So, I'm done.
What about what?
When are we gonna build those bins for the?
Well, this was brought up, and Mike, I kind of gave an answer to Bev. She was questioning that we should move on the enclosures for the trash dumpster.
They're all on his schedule.
Let's just do the library.
They're all on Joe's schedule.
Yeah, the only one I'm concerned
He
about.
said, I think we're on for after Clement.
Okay, but which ones would you build? The library,
still a library, for
Well,
sure.
it depends what he's got, if he's gonna plan to knock all three of them out.
Because the only thing I thought,
If
maybe,
he's got time to do one or two, we'll do the library.
I thought maybe you should do, did you reconsider, because the one that's so close to Bowers Avenue, it seems too far away. Once you build the building, do you think it should be closer to the building?
Well, that's the only, you figure,
Because I
That's
noticed
the only
being
place
down there,
we
that
have
people
here.
won't drag it down there. Myself dragging the trash down there was a lot of work.
you know, if you wanna put it on the building, you can, but then you're gonna have a dumpster right next to the building, you know?
That's typical. But it'll be in the code.
But then we gotta get access to it too.
Right, so that'll be sitting out there on the road.
Yeah.
You gotta be 15 feet away from your trash enclosure to the building, otherwise we sprinkle the trash enclosure. So it has to be at least.
And you know, one of the problems being down there that year where we moved the dumpster, I was there for a lot of the baseball, and one of my jobs was to take the trash out, and it's a long haul
It is, but,
to haul that trash.
but you're on a baseball field, you know, what's close on a baseball?
I just, all I was thinking was if we build this building in the middle, you know, now you've got the food there, you've got the two fields, you've got the building, it's more conducive there, moving it 100 feet
And also,
away.
we're gonna also put an asphalt trail to it.
I was gonna say, there's gonna be a path.
Yeah, it's
It's
gonna be a
path.
better,
So maybe we just invest in better trash cans, one with wheels and things like that.
they have.
You know, the problem was they had wheels, but they were so heavy.
That's,
Leave them a couple hundred feet, like buy save ones for your, you can segue the trash now, and then you're done.
the problem
I
is,
couldn't lift them up.
that's the thing, you can't lift them
I
up.
couldn't lift them, that's the
So
problem.
maybe we could look into a dumpster that has like an east edge or something,
Yeah, well, remember, these dumpsters were purchased by the borough because they line up with the trash truck.
or a mechanism we could put on there, to get,
I
make
just want you
it
to
easier.
consider that third one is more difficult. That last dumpster location is the most critical.
Probably the best place would be second base in the minor league, but it really wouldn't work out too well, I think, second base in the minor.
We should invest in buying cans for everybody, so when we buy them in the garbage truck, we have a little one arm, and then that's one employee that has to empty.
If it's that big, once again, it's trash cans all around the fields. I was emptying them, dragging them back and forth down to the dumpster, which was in the dip.
Right, but what we
And
have,
then I couldn't lift them because I'm not strong enough.
if I can interject in
Go
that,
ahead, go ahead.
what we will have the ability to do now, you can't do the one, we looked at this when I first came on board, and one of the challenges that was, we basically I was told it wasn't possible, but I think the challenge is that if we have two vehicles, if the first vehicle is doing all the streets that you don't have to back them, we have a lot of courts and we have a lot of dead-end streets, they're the issues. So if the main vehicle does the challenge streets, then the one-armed vehicle can do the streets for pedestrians, but then the second issue is vehicles. Because a lot of our streets, how would you get to the
You
cans?
guys still do recycle bank in Cherry Hill?
Yes. Not what it used to be, but yes, we do.
Yeah, not many people are doing
What do they
it.
do with the parking on the streets with that, with the one arm?
You just have to have room.
But you
Can't
have
have
to
the
have, I mean, if you have, basically, we don't have issues in my town, we park in our driveways for the most
You
part.
know, we have special trash cans, and it's just guy drives the truck and things come out.
But do you have parking on the street?
Yeah, we have, so if you're done.
So you gotta put it like out to the end of the car or something?
Yeah, if he can't get to it, come on.
I'll go right by.
Yeah, somebody parks.
Until the next week.
Okay.
But we have to really tight park, we'd have to have, you know, on trash day, you can't park
Most
on
of
that
the
side of
township
the street.
uses it in part of the area, and there are certain streets that they have routes where they have the regular trucks. They have boat trucks.
Empty a dumpster.
Oh, really?
It will.
I do have a couple quickie things, even though
It
they're
has
never
to be-
quick.
It has the specs, it had a hook on it to empty dumpsters.
Yeah.
That's part of.
Yeah, I have the specs,
So
but not the one on bed.
But if we have a recycled dumpster at the ROI and a trash dumpster, they can empty the recycled dumpster.
Yeah, it's not gonna be recycled.
But we have to instill that, it has to be.
We have to work on it. It's tough.
We
I
have to
agree.
work
It's
on it.
tough, we have to
It
work
is
on it.
tough, but we have to work on it. Did you get my picture I sent you, that
I
garbage?
did, that's a cute
I think
idea.
that's a good
Okay,
idea. That's why you gotta make it fun.
Couple quick things. Obviously, the planning board has worked on both the home business ordinance and the draft sign regulations, which were done by box office. The draft sign regulations, once again, it's too much for the planning board. I'm gonna move it right up to the council. That's appropriate. I'm gonna give everyone a copy of it. How I feel about a lot of these ordinances is they're living documents. You know, if we adopt it and we tweak it in the future, I don't think that's the end of the world. It's better to have something than nothing. Currently, the existing ordinance is 1 page long. The new one is 15 or 16 pages, but it gives, we don't have anything. We have no teeth in our ordinance. So I'm gonna email this to everybody, review it. I may ask for first reading for next month, because you know how I like to do it, and then we've been doing it for a few months, but at least it gets, at least it gets you started. The home business,
I'm sleeping the worst of it.
the words coming out, thank you. The home business is being finished by the planning board, and what they've done is they've done a very good job of combining a few different other municipalities and the uniqueness to our community. Basically, just outlines the issues that we are concerned about with home-based businesses. That they're allowed, they're permitted, but there needs to be at least a minimum regulations. It says you can't have trash trucks. You can't have, forklifts unloading stuff on Rowan Avenue. So, and it limits how much the house can be, a percentage of the house. Can't be the whole house. I'm gonna let you look at it. Dave Rowan and Carl Lemire, they're putting it together. It'll be good enough to get us started. And what it does do is, ironically, there's even a member on the planning board that he doesn't match it right now because he's got a big enough house that he can justify parking. He can't even see the stuff. They didn't want to make it so that different areas would be regulated differently. Obviously, where I live, some of the houses have bigger lots, so you can easily park 3 or 4 vehicles. It's limiting the amount of vehicles. So anybody who's going to have to get a variance, have to come in and get a variance if they exceed 10% of their house is office, if they need more than a few vehicles or even employees. It's not a bad little ordinance. And so I'm going to wait for that one. Do you think I should wait for the sign one? You guys don't like when I push it on there? And then the last thing was just to reiterate about the public health ordinance. Did you give me this, or where did I get this? The public health ordinance. Once again, once we know more about when Joyce goes there, it sounds like we're going to have to at least create an advisory board. And just for the health. Yeah, I got a copy of it if you need it. And other than that, I have a lot more, but I'll let us go.
What about when I talked to you about the standards of count? What are we going to do about that?
It's more of a land use issue. What Beth brought up was other municipalities, originally from Haddon Township, they would not allow any buildings on Haddon Township, or Haddon Avenue that aren't brick. Paint standards in Hadfield, sign colors, we all know about these kinds of things. It was brought up that we do need to start to look at some standards on what people can do.
And there's only 2 ways you can do that.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask Len to listen here. One is if you create a redevelopment ordinance, except for you can have like a general thing is all buildings must be aesthetically pleasing and fit into the vernacular of the existing surrounding.
This is typically for new construction.
Right, but that's like a very general thing. But if you want to say, we want brick, or we want people to bring architectural to the planning board, you have to be a redevelopment zone, or you have to designate it as some sort of zone, historic, downtown redevelopment, some other designation that passes the lab test. Not a big deal.
Yeah, redevelopment zones
Like I
Yeah,
said,
you get a lot of-
Antoinette's, I'll put it right on the record, Antoinette's did a beautiful job. They repainted the building, it looks great. And then there's a half a dozen other places that they are in horrible.
Across the street.
Well, that's it. And I said,
That's exactly the building.
there needs to be a point that you can say, no, you can't paint this building pink with lime green shutters. You just can't do it. It doesn't appeal to what we're trying to create.
Is that regular? Can you regulate?
Yeah.
Did you regulate color?
Yeah.
Haddonfield.
Absolutely. They do it in a
If it was challenged, that might say it sounds.
purple, but a
That was
color-
not in the zone.
Well, that's what we have no zones.
So that's what I'm
Well,
saying.
that's what
Make
we're
it-
saying. We have to create
They
one.
created the downtown, so they did it in,
You
what was
just
the
do
town?
it downtown.
So the Black-
So the Blackwood, I know that.
You know,
Blackwood's
search the Blackwood West redevelopment zone, so every time we have to go get it coming from the redevelopment entity, more work on council, because you're really the
Yeah, the interior
Well,
decoration,
that's-
exterior decoration.
you're the policing factor of what their architectural
Right,
standards.
Right, we're not saying that it has to be Victorian, we're saying there needs to be a color scheme, like you can't come in and paint this building some crazy
It's the
color.
same-
Well, one of the things that boroughs failed to
The
do is
concept
get planners.
is, Steve outlined the concept, that once you accept the concept, then you start to work on the particulars.
It's very
Okay.
easy.
I think it's easy.
Well, redevelopment zone is something that was discussed, they got really squashed a few years ago.
Or you could be doing redevelopment without eminent domain. You can take that out now.
We'll take that
All
out.
right, you could do rehabilitation only. Redevelopment is the only one that has deep architectural standards, so. But you very specifically says redevelopment, however, we are not going to exercise eminent domain as a policy by this redevelopment.
Because that scares everybody.
That's correct. That's usually what.
And that was one of the, like I said, one of the discussions was to expand the commercial zone along the Blackhorse
And you.
We could do that without scaring
I
everybody with
would
evidence.
suggest that it would be a very good proof along that whole, on both sides of the pipe, that it'll meet the standards. It will meet the standards.
Well, it's funny, because like even up where.
It would be.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Phillipsburg, New Jersey, it was, I don't know if you guys are familiar, it's in North Jersey, it was like northern Jersey, it's right, it's on Delaware. It was an area that had definitely suffered, a lot of major businesses had left, there were a lot of vacant stores. It was just, the street, the main street was littered with it. And somehow or another, they passed a redevelopment zone and they put up guidelines. Even the vacant stores were able to have their facades. I mean, the insides of them were a disaster, but the facade of them had been maintained and painted within, like coordinating up the street. And even though they were empty, at least it gave the appearance like, looks like a kind of nice.
Well, that's what
town,
Len
you know
earlier
what I mean?
today said, condemned, that, we could,
Yeah,
if we really want to actively pursue this Platform's Way, which I think we've started to go.
Yes.
But remember, I think you pay attention, we are going in how many directions, guys? I mean,
Yeah, but we also want the property owners to take care of the property.
Correct.
Yeah.
We don't want to get too strong, and then we're taking care of all these properties.
Correct.
But the redevelopment zone is something we definitely can talk about again. I love the idea, I loved it many years ago.
Like
You know, let's-
Gibbsburg with brick,
Right.
they did all the brick, and that's
Oh, that looks great.
fantastic.
It looks really
You
good.
know?
I thought that was Finland. That was just Sweet Road.
What was that one?
And it was the guy, the owner of PJ Wellington.
Oh, he had to do his building.
Yeah, when he did his
Yeah, it was
building,
a standard
he was
that they
complaining
had.
he didn't want brick, but he had to because of Gibbsburg.
Well, even like, even Whitman, I mean, there's.
Yeah.
it's
Well, I'm
just
just looking at
easy, like, they
I have to go in front of these
consistency.
historic boards all the time. I'm well aware of these type of boards that drive me bananas. And,
But it does create a nicer look.
it does help.
It
But
does.
we were, when the Blackwood West was created, we were the redevelopment architect. We came in, we set the whole process. We switched, now we're up, now we're at the planning board. But it does not have to be a difficult process for the owners of the business. You can say, this is the guidelines, right? You can't use vinyl siding, sorry. I know you would love to, but there's 10 other materials we can help you look at that are really not that different in terms of cost of the vinyl siding. So we're really trying to help them choose, the best material that fits in with the downtown without trying to say, no, you've got to use, solid brick, or you've got to use this. and that.
I agree that
So we
the
need to
standards are
embrace,
helpful.
that's what I was saying with Patty, you have to embrace what is left of our downtown, and there's not a lot left of our
I
downtown.
think businesses would take that on and want to do that, to know that what they're investing in is something in the future.
Right.
Yeah,
It
it's
gives them the
protected. They're
feeling that
willing to
we're
do
moving
it,
in the right
they're hoping
direction.
the next guy, and on and on and on.
It's a double-edged sword. That's
You
all.
walk into an open, yeah, do whatever you want,
I agree.
you're like, wow, that's all shit.
We're at that way now.
Yeah.
Freedom. Okay, anything else?
No, let's wrap this up.
Okay, do I have okay, we have good and welfare. This portion of the meeting is open to the public. Anyone wishing to speak may come up. Seeing no one, I make a motion to close the public portion. Is there a second? I'm closing the public portion. All in favor?
Second.
Closed. Adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I think
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.